I think we'll start the meeting here with the Pledge of Allegiance. So Senator Collerton, please lead us in the pledge. The flag. For those of you, the flag is right up there on the wall.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We should anticipate people filtering in, too, with different work schedules, so that's fine. Welcome to the Town Hall meeting. My name is Kevin Wallace. I'm the Village President of Bartlett. I want to thank all of those of you who have tracked this. From the beginning of this meeting, we were going to have it held at Bartlett Hills, and since we anticipated a larger crowd than that room can hold, and we didn't want people waiting, we moved the venue. So thank you to those of you who have moved your plans. First, let me thank the representatives from the DuPage County Clerk's Office, the Wayne Township Assessor's Office, the Hanover Township Assessor's Office, the School District U46, and especially State Senator Tom Collerton for joining us at this Town Hall meeting. We appreciate you taking the time with us tonight. The dramatic property tax increase in DuPage and Cook this year placed an unusually heavy burden in Bartlett residents. The initial analysis of tax bills yielded some valuable answers. This issue remains troublesome for everyone in this room. I am pleased that we are able to hold this forum today. I hope it gives all of us a chance to share in the information we have so far and continue the discussion about ongoing concerns. When the speakers have concluded their remarks this evening, we'll have questions from the audience. If you do have questions, we ask that you come up to a microphone. Please refrain, the microphone's in the middle here, please refrain from shouting out questions. We really want this to be a valuable evening for different people have different questions, so please refrain from shouting them out. There's a microphone there. We can, at the end of the presentations, we will have people line up there for questions. Some of the panel have some remarks to make, and some of them are just here to answer questions. And it wasn't published that Thomas Smogalski will from Hanover Township will be here. Actually, he's not on the panel. It primarily was initially a Wayne Township tax information, and he is in the back of the room. So when it does come to question and answer time, for those of you with questions about the Hanover Township taxes, he will be here to answer those questions. And I want to thank him for showing up at the last minute. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce Illinois Senator Tom Collerton.
First, I want to thank you all for showing up tonight. I know the weather has been unpredictable all day, and it's sort of still unpredictable now. I want to thank Mayor Wallace for setting this up and for setting up a second round of town halls, and for also the friendship that Bartlett has had towards me since I took office. In May, we had a Capitol on Your Corner right over at Toots. A few residents came out, but that was prior to tax bills. I have a feeling had tax bills been there, that Toots wouldn't have been able to handle everybody there. And then we had a town hall meeting in June over in Hanover Park that was very well attended. Many residents came out to discuss the issues and discuss the problems. And really about end of May is where we started finding out what the mistakes were and what had happened. We would have loved to have been able to find a way through some legislative rule that we could have applied any type of fix. So what we'll be talking about, or what I'll be talking about tonight, is sort of the partnership going forward with not only Michael Musson, but also Paul Hines, to start looking at answers and to why this occurred, and not only why it occurred, but how we could stop it from going forward. We've gotten the assurance that it was a mistake over in the Kane County assessment side, which I'm sure Paul and Michael will be more than happy to chat about when they come up here. But my job is to fix it. My job is to create the laws down in Springfield that make sure this doesn't happen again. My job is to make sure that we have a better process going forward. Part of my other job as well is to do what last week I made a call into the Department of Revenue to start doing a 10-year look back just to see where we're at and make sure this hasn't been occurring the entire time. But while everybody's property values have been going up at the same rate, maybe we just didn't know it. And we will have a formal request letter. I'm a big fan of always using the phone and just calling and talking to people, but I understand people want to see the formal request letter, so we will have that for Mayor Wallace. He can post either on the website or send out. We are always accessible to you. We come out here quite frequently. I love the parade, except when I get stopped by the train. That always seems to be the biggest thing that stops everything. But we're more than happy to help in any way we can. We're more than happy to push legislation through in Springfield that'll stop this going forward, because truthfully, you're not the only district that's a multi-county district. Up in McHenry and Lake County, you have multi-county districts, and it's only a matter of time before this happens again. So my goal is to make sure it doesn't ever happen again, and to get legislation that makes sure that we can rectify the problems going forward. And with that, Mayor Wallace, who am I giving it over to? I'll give it back to Mayor Wallace.
Thank you, Senator Cullerton. Next, we'll ask DuPage County Clerk Paul Hines to give us a few words. And I know a lot of you may have read most of the information that these gentlemen are going to share. We've asked them to keep it real simple. We want to have most of the time available so that everybody can get their voice heard and everybody can get their questions answered. So thank you, Paul, for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, and I know I've talked to some of you in the room. I've also spoke out in Wayne Township a couple of weeks ago, and many of you are probably returning. But kind of to give you a brief idea, a lot of people have told me before, don't go through the whole process of how it works, but I'm going to give you a brief 101 on how taxes work when, unfortunately, we go into Cook County, Kane, and DuPage. So when you have a district that goes into 3 counties, which is what we call an overlapping district, and Cook County is the key here, because DuPage and Kane are on the same time frame. So when we send out the 2013 bills, we're using Kane's 2013 values, DuPage 2013 values. Unfortunately, Cook County is not on the same calendar as the rest of the state. So what we have to do, and this is where the problem came in, and everything comes from the Department of Revenue. In the wisdom of the General Assembly and the laws, they said, because they assess differently, they have different exemptions and everything else in Cook County, we're going to create a burden. So it's going to be fair for every county that overlaps into Cook County, that the State Department of Revenue is going to tell the county clerk what number to use. So every year I wait, I get a certified letter from the state. They tell me this is your portion, and in this case for U46, just using that for the example, but it's every district that goes into Cook County, that this is a percent that U46 is in DuPage. So we calculate a rate for the entire district, then we break it down and say, okay, what portion of that pie, as I always say, we go back to the pie, what portion of the pie are the DuPage residents going to pay? And that's the burden. And the trouble with this is the Department of Revenue gave me, or certified, a number that actually was revised later, but not before your tax bill was sent out. So they told me that the 2012 burden was 24.33. When I have to go back and recalculate it, it should have been 23.69. It's a difference of from 3.8 million to 2 million. And and many of you have heard me say this before, when we recalculated those rates, it's about a 40 cents per $100 of assessed valuation on your bill. That is purely using that incorrect, or the burden that they gave us incorrectly. Now, the other wrinkle in this whole process is I'm using 2012 Cook values because Cook County is not on our same calendar. So now I'm going to go through, now that we're done, the bills are out, the bills are collected. Now Cook County comes back and says, here's our 2013 value. The state tells me what the 2013 burden is. Now I have to recalculate or come back and come up with a prior year adjustment for you on your 2014 bill. And that's the key, what everybody in this room is waiting for. Because when I do those numbers, so I had to go back and recalculate 12, bring that forward to your 2013 bill. From the 2013 bill, remember I'm only using the 2012 Cook value and burden. I have to readjust that for the 2013 rate, and I come up with everybody in DuPage County, and this is only the DuPage section, it would be about $4.8 million I'm going to take off of our piece of the pie. So let's say and this is where I'm hitting a moving target, because everybody says, okay, what am I going to say? Are you going to give me $600? Are you going to give me $300? I don't know what the U-46 levy is going to be this year. Once I have the levy, and that isn't until the end of the year, we will calculate a rate for the entire district, as I said before. But I'm going to be using the 2013. Now, this is where it gets complicated. I'm going to still be using the 2013 Cook value, not the 2014. I'll have Kane and DuPage 2014 values. But if say the DuPage portion of the pie is going to be $10 million. From that $10 million, I'm going to subtract the $4.8 million. So that is where you're going to see your savings. So the amount of money that you paid this year, I am going to deduct from, so where you're going to only get a tax rate that's going to collect the remaining portion of that and taking the $4.8 million off. But that's the moving target. I can't give you a number tonight, but I can guarantee that the $4.8 million will be reduced from the DuPage portion of the pie. And that's kind of where we're going to go. So I know it's a very complicated system, especially when it overlaps into more districts. And I'll probably save it more for questions at the end. But that's how we got to the point. We use the numbers that we have to use by law because the law was set up so all the county clerks are even. So we're not making our determination. But the key is when they give me the wrong number, I use the wrong number. We make the correction in the following year, which is also by statute. So, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate you having me here, and I'm always happy to answer questions, like I say. And even at the office, I've been talking to many residents one-on-one, which is fine, too. So, happy to be here.
Thank you, Deputy Clerk Hines. Next, we'll ask, I believe, Wayne Township Assessor Mike Musson, say a few words.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Mayor Wallace and Senator Cullerton, for inviting me tonight. And I am the Wayne Township Assessor, and I also live here in Bartlett. I know there's a lot of anger about this error that's occurred. I'm angry about it. As most of you know, my role is property valuation. I don't set the levies for all of the taxing districts. I value the properties based on the sales that occurred the previous 3 years. So even though that's my statutory role, I get phone calls every year when the tax bills come out, and they're about the increases in the tax bills, even when they're not related to what I did. We go through their assessments with them, and in most of the cases, they're uniform and based on, and reflected by the sales. So I have to look people in the face and, explain there's nothing I can really do for them, even though I agree the taxes are too high. So the additional challenge is having a township that has taxing bodies that overlap into Cook County, and Paul explained that in great detail. But when these 2013 tax rates came out this year, I was blown away. And the increases were 11 to 12% for residents of these taxing bodies. So I first started reviewing the calculations by the county clerks and contacted the Department of Revenue trying to figure out what happened. And I also mailed a newsletter to residents explaining that the department does this burden calculation process and encourage them to contact the Department of Revenue to get their explanation for these calculations they're performing. And they discovered the error. I won't go through all of the bits and pieces since Paul's pretty much covered it, but most of what I was prepared, Paul's pretty much covered, but we've got to do something to make sure this doesn't happen again. But I did want to take the opportunity, since I'm up here tonight, to make sure everyone's aware that we've concluded the 2014 assessments for Wayne Township. They'll be published in the Examiner newspapers next week on Wednesday the 17th, and the appeal deadline will then be October 17th. So you can most of the assessments went down 2.34%, which it was a township equalization factor. And so even though the sales have actually picked up for the last year and a half, 2 years, the assessments have gone down for one more year. So, and, you know, the way we calculate the assessments is based on the 3-year average. So even when the market picks up, the assessments take a little while to react to the market changes. So you can visit my website, WayneTownshipAssessor.com, or call my office, 630-231-8900, if you have questions about your assessment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. As you can tell, a lot of these guys have repeated this speech over and over. U46 was going to do a PowerPoint. I think that they had some technical issues, but they are going to say a few words, I guess, the cliff notes of what their PowerPoint would have said. Once they've concluded, we will ask that those of you that have questions, we can line up. So. Mr. Tony Sanders is the Chief Executive Officer at U46, and we welcome also Dale Burnage as the Director of Financial Operations.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Senator Cullerton. Again, this is our second forum with Senator Cullerton, and we appreciate his efforts for all he's done for U46 in Springfield. I am the new CEO for School District U46, just a week into the job, although I've been in the district for 7 years and have my kids in the district as well. I'm also a property owner, taxpayer, and I do regret what happened to DuPage County, but I can also say that was not a U46 mistake. This was a mistake made by the Kane County Assessor. As you've heard, it was not an issue that U46 had any control over, nor were we aware of it until you got your property tax bills. I wanted to just take a few moments, in the PowerPoint that we had prepared for you was to really address some of the misinformation that you might be hearing about U46 and our budget. Some of the things that you might have read in the Bartlett Examiner and other publications make it appear that we have increased our spending by $100 million since 2007. That is false. We've actually increased about $52 million. The remainder of that actually is a new change in state law that makes us recognize how much the state puts towards retirement contributions on our behalf. So it's an accounting maneuver, not an actual increase in spending. Overall, our increase in spending since 2007 has been less than the rate of inflation at 1.95%. I'd be glad to answer any questions during the forum instead of boring you with a long PowerPoint. Thank you.
So that concludes the panel's introductory information. So at this point, I would ask that anybody that would have questions, I believe we're going to bring a microphone over, probably a wireless one, and if you have a question for a specific panel member, feel free to address them directly.
Okay, gentlemen, I saw her hand first, so she gets to go first.
Good evening. My name is Marianne Nyberg, and I've been a resident of Bartlett for 32 years. And my question is directed to Mayor Wallace. Mayor Wallace, being a longtime resident, what are you doing for us to make residents want to stay in Bartlett, to improve everything within Bartlett, and not to allow things like this to continue to happen? We have no downtown, we have taxes that are unbelievable, And I can't understand how you, as the mayor, can let it just slip by.
Well, I can tell you we've done everything that we can from a financial standpoint. We reduced our levy by $500,000 last year. So from a tax burden, we reduced the portion that goes to the village to operate the village. We are aggressively seeking out other businesses to come into town. We've got more new businesses this year than we've had in the last 3 or 4 years that are coming into town. So we've got Marco's Pizza downtown. We're doing everything that we can right now in this economy to get it moving.
But my question is then, what are you doing to look at our property values? They continue to go down. My house gets less and less. It's almost at what I bought it at.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, obviously, living in Bartlett. We try to do whatever we can to create jobs, to create a better economy, to increase the viability of our village.
Okay, and then my last question is, you mentioned, and I forgot your name, sir, I apologize, that there's $4.6 million to distribute amongst the DuPage County area. How many homes does that actually affect? How many taxpayers will that affect? And what will the refund, I mean, I know you can't say what the refund is, but we've never heard how many homes this affects. If it's 200 or 20,000, 30,000, it's going to be a very small amount.
Right. Actually, and this is only for U46, so this is only for the one district that we're talking about. So also 509 will also have a prior year adjustment made, but that's separate from that. That $4.8 million is purely for the U46. I believe there's about 13,000 homes, residential properties in U46 that's in the DuPage portion. Now, we have to look at the value of those homes because everything is done off of value-based. So what the EAV of all those properties in will determine what the rate is. But you figure the rate is going to drop. For $1.8 million, it was a 40-cent rate using this year's, the 2013 values. So you can kind of gauge that giving back 1.8 was a 0.4%, a 40 cent per $100 of assessed value deduction. So you're going to multiply that almost by 5 times. So you may get like a $2 off your rate. I mean, I believe the rate was about 8.5 this year or whatever, so you may see the rate go, but it all depends on what the values are going to do, because it's all value-based, but the rate may be around 6 next year. But I can't tell you that yet because I don't know what the levy is going to be.
Okay.
But you will see a difference. And I'm working on a way in order to give each homeowner to say, here's what it was before and with the rate, with the 4.8 million taken off. So we're going to work on a program to see if I can actually get a letter, rather than doing it on the tax bills, maybe just a letter from the county clerk's office instead, per parcel number. Actually, everything's done by parcel.
Okay, thank you.
My name's John Winnicky. I've lived here for 40 years. 38 years ago, we went through the same problem. And the judge said if it happens again, it was possible for U42 to be fined $100,000. You people don't go in the back section. It's all in the records in DuPage County. That's where it was filed. Mr. Munson's mother was here as our assessor at the time. So I don't understand why all of this always has to happen. It's always these politicians and everybody, their minds go and they only worry about the future. The hell with what happened before, and we never get anything done. You people just sit there and say, we'll take the money. Who cares? And we have to work for that money. Not you, because you all got a goddamn pension. You people got all your pensions all set up so that you're so goddamn rich that we have to pay you. I say there's no politician that should ever get a pension. He's not allowed. He's got too much money that he's already taken from the state in his salary. If we did it the way it was originally set up with the old Constitution, every one of the politicians in office would not be there because they only got $1,700 a year for a half a year's work. And that's all you guys are worth.
First, it was Mr. Winky, right? John? This is the first time hearing of any DuPage court order. And I can tell you that, and we've talked to the Department of Revenue, and we haven't heard that at all. Department of Revenue did not. With that being said, tomorrow morning my staff will be calling the DuPage court to find out and see exactly where that is. But this is legitimately the first time we've heard anything about a court case from 30 plus years ago, 38 years ago.
72 or 73 when it was filed.
All right,
I'll tell you something. The women that live here work their family off for free to get all the information from Kane County, Cook County, and DuPage County so that the assessor knew what the right figures were. And she did a right job. I can't understand this man's mother, it's got to be your mother, and you never even talked to her about this.
well, let's.
This error was calculated by the Kane County Clerk's Office and filtered through the state to Paul's office.
Senator, if I could just jump in, that court case may have created the tax burden because the burden was created, this overseeing body of the Illinois Department of Revenue. That court case may have caused the state to say we need a tax burden. So, Senator, when you're looking into that, I believe that the burden might have come out of that court case.
Well, we will definitely take a look at it. Hopefully, John, you signed in when you came in, correct? We will make sure to not only call you with the information that we find out, but also, and obviously, a lot of this is going to be, as it comes from our office, part of the reason we want you all to sign in. We have a very large and expanded email list that we actually send out updates of what's going on in the state and what's going on. Part of our job in moving forward with this is to work with Kevin, is to work with U46, is to work with Paul and Michael to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And if it shouldn't have happened again, we're going to find out why that wasn't ever brought forward and why that wasn't ever told to everybody. And then I'm going to address a couple other issues. First, for those of you who also don't know me, my background. I come from working for Hostess in sales. I was a Teamster before and got elected, and 12 days later, Hostess went out of business. I do not take a pension from the state of Illinois. I also do not use the health benefits from the state of Illinois. I COBRA out of my job, my prior union. With also that being said, realize there is movement to change the entire dynamic of what we have. Last year, I filed a bill, Senate Bill 494. Illinois has 7,000 units of local government. We have the largest amount of units of government within the country, which means each one of those units of government is a taxing body. Last year, with the help of Chairman Cronin and his entire county board and their support for me and the other legislators in DuPage County, we started a movement forward. We passed a bill that actually will reduce, first here in DuPage as a blueprint, 13 units of local government. Those will now be coming off the tax rolls. This will then be brought forward. Representative Franks brought a bill forward that allows other counties to do this. However, the way we did it here in DuPage, I feel, is the best way, and we're going to start rolling that out next year to do it statewide. If every county in our state with 102 counties can reduce the municipal tax burdens by 10 units, that'd be 1,000 less units of local government. And while those may be small amounts, $10 here, maybe $50 here off your tax level, when you start talking thousands of units of local government, that's going to be a huge piece of the pie. The anticipation here in DuPage with just the 13 units of local government is anywhere from a $3 to $6 million savings for the taxpayer. If we could do that in every county, that is a way we're moving our state forward. You're going to see that occur, and you're going to see. Last year in the legislature, we had 33% new people, 33% turnover. Very few jobs in this country have a 33% turnover. But when things are going bad, you see a lot of people lose, and you see a lot of people get fired. And when 33% of the people leave, it means a third of the group got fired, and new people were brought in. I'm glad to say I'm one of the new people. I'm stuck with a huge amount of debt to try to figure out. I'm stuck with a huge amount of how to bring business back here to Illinois, and I'm working to get that done. So be assured that we are working very hard, and we are partnering with all of our local government agencies to get that accomplished. So I know it looks bleak now, but it's moving forward. And I'll make sure that we follow up with you this week. I'm sure the DuPage County Court's open tomorrow. It's only Wednesday. So I'm sure we will follow up and at least have some of an answer for you by Friday. Okay? Thank you, John.
Hi. I wanted to ask specifically, because I really want to understand, who the name or the names of the persons that decided to withhold the taxpayers' money for 1 full year. I want to know who those people are by name, and I want to know their reasoning. Why did they choose to issue a credit next year's taxes instead of initiating a credit towards their second installment, which I clearly believe could have been done in time for the second installment? And then I want to know, if the second installment is not an issue, I mean, if that couldn't have been the focus, then why not a refund check? Because mortgage companies do it all the time. And lastly, I want to ask this too. Was this decision legal?
Paul will answer the technicality portion of that. I can assure you, with the meetings that the Village of Bartlett had, we were really pushing hard to do exactly what you're asking to do. And we hit brick wall after brick wall, and really we're told that it was technically impossible because of the irreducibly complex nature of our taxing system. But I'll let Paul try to describe it to you. But I can tell you that we tried to do that.
Okay.
Right. Well, we have to follow the law. So the state law, and I'll give you, because somebody asked me at the other meeting, so I'll give you, it's 35 ILCS 200-18-155. Oh.
Repeat it again.
Okay, so it's 35, and that's ILCS, and then it's 200 / then it's 18-155. And that law states that if we overlap into another county, that the Department of Revenue will give us a burden. If they don't give us a burden in a timely manner, meaning that our tax bills have to be produced, that we will use the prior year's number until we get a new one, and that the prior year or the next year, that adjustment will be made in the prior year's tax bill. So that's what the law sets up for me to do.
So you're saying there's a statute?
In the county clerk's office, we don't have the option. The General Assembly passes a law and says this is what you will do. They don't say may do, it's that you shall do this. And so we follow the law, otherwise they can sue us.
So the statute is more or less saying that you can issue the credit in the following years.
That's correct. What we call a prior. You keep hearing me say a prior year adjustment, but right, it addresses it as you will make a prior year adjustment in the next tax cycle.
Even though it was wrongfully taken.
That is correct, because the law says, because you have to remember now, and I keep talking about this piece of the pie. So DuPage paid a higher portion of the pie than we should have.
Right.
Kane didn't pay as much as they should have. I'm not sure where Cook fell in, but the total pie was paid. There wasn't an overpayment of the pie. It was just which piece of the pie was correct or not correct. So,
no, I understand pie very clearly.
Right. So the total dollars went to the collector, got distributed to U46. So U46 has the money. The county doesn't have the money. The collector doesn't have the money. That's where it is. I mean, that's right.
Okay.
Well,
so regardless of that, you cannot issue any sort of a refund. As in a credit.
Currently, the county does not have the money, so it would be U46 that has the money.
So U46 has to issue the refund?
Right. So,
let me see if I can explain this a little bit more clear from my understanding. The the amount of funds that were required to be collected in total are not over what they should have been.
Right. I understand.
So then it's the fact that some taxpayers paid a disproportionate share than other taxpayers. Now, if you're trying to unwind that, you can't just say, give us our money back, county or U46 or whatever taxing body it is.
Okay.
You'd have to actually charge the ones that were undercharged more and get the funds back here. But understand that formula cannot be calculated until all of Cook County's numbers are in. And that's in November.
It's coming soon. I'll have it soon. But.
So who were the people that made this decision, or was it a collective?
And real quick, also, the function of the law that Paul stated only allows for that to happen in the next cycle. The law, and this is why this is part of my piece of the, I don't want to say pie because that's getting used a lot.
I'm going to stop saying pie.
But part of my piece in this equation is to get that law changed and fixed. It does not help today.
Right.
It does not. And I would love to say it does, but it does not. And as you come through and as I've gone down to Springfield, there is more and more issues that I am finding that are somewhat insanity. But I'm trying to fix those. I'm working very well with a lot of DuPage to fix these laws. I mean, we're the #1 county in Illinois, and there's a reason for that. You guys are the #4 city I believe in the state. You're the 3rd safest city in America. There are reasons for that, because DuPage County does it right. And I'm trying to bring sort of our model of the way we do things down to Illinois, so they start figuring out how to get it done correctly.
Well,
I would love to say that there's a function of the law that would allow them to change the money, take the money from Kane and give it to us and do that back and forth.
it would be simpler.
But there isn't, and I will change that law.
Now I have another question. If we look at this in all fairness, if you can't make those adjustments because the law doesn't provide for those, when you focus on trying to prevent this from happening again, what about interest on the taxpayers' money?
I like the word interest. I was going to call it an accountability standard, because that seems like it'll pass a lot better when you tell everybody in Springfield the reason I'm passing this law or I'm bringing this law forward is to hold people accountable. Everybody goes, ooh, that's a good idea. We need to hold people accountable. And that's going to be part of the phase as well. What's also going to be part of, as I try to push forward, is an opportunity for the clerks to hold back bills if they see a discrepancy or if they see an opportunity, and to hold those bills so that they have an opportunity to file and possibly adjudicate against another clerk. The opportunity, the fact that Paul and Michael cannot go and adjudicate against another clerk who, whether they knew it or not, and I'm not going to say they know it or they did know, but the fact is if we found that there was an error that was going to cost, they had to have known that their people were going to get a great deal. And the fact that they didn't do anything about it means there has to be an opportunity prior to the bills coming out for Paul and Michael to adjudicate to get that accomplished. So that is my goal as we go forward. Again, I would love to say it can happen and stop today, but the function of the law and the way the law was originally written is the way it is today.
Then my assumption is you're going to take that up and straighten it out?
Oh, yeah. But the key is here's the other thing. Get on our email list, because when we file the bill, we're going to have copies of letters. They'll be kind of goofy, but we'll ask you to send them to other legislators to help me get this passed. We'll have phone numbers with scripts of other legislators' offices. This is not something I can pass alone, and this is something that other people may get very leery of. I can tell you next year that when these meetings start happening in Kane County, they're going to be very disappointed that they weren't holding these types of meetings going, by the way, next year, here's what's going to happen to you. Because I don't think they're holding those meetings in Kane County. For my friends in Kane County, they are not, which means all the meetings we're having are probably going to be even larger out in Kane County. And then they're going to go, well, can't we fix the law? And they'll go, well, wait a second, they already did fix the law, and we're really stuck now.
All right, thank
Okay?
you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rick Newton. I'm a resident of Wayne for 29 years. I have a request first for Senator Cullerton and then a question for U46. Senator, getting back to what you were talking to as far as the legislation that you were thinking of proposing, and as far as consolidation of municipal entities or governmental bodies, I also understand that the current governor has a desire to consolidate school districts, maybe as a part of that or maybe it's separate. And I would implore you to take a look at the example of U46 as a perfect reason as to why not to consolidate school districts across counties. There's too many things that can go wrong. And really, and I think most people in this room would tell you, the only reason that we have been retained in this school district is because of the assets that the district owns and because of the tax dollars that Bartlett and Wayne will deliver. So And my concern is that the General Assembly does not have the best track record in terms of coming up with revenue-type solutions. We are about to pay the price for what was supposed to be a 4-year tax, income tax. That was a promise that was made. That's not going to be held true. They're looking to extend that, and we cannot get pension reform straight. I would hate to step into this particular swamp. So I'll let you speak to that, but I want to ask a question to U46, and that kind of piggybacks onto what Kathy was just talking about, and it has to do with the fact that the amount that is in error due to Kane County, that dollar amount may be, and Kevin, maybe you were just saying this, is something that would have been collected anyway, but it was collected from the wrong people. So it may be acceptable by policy, maybe even legally for you to do that, but I would offer that ethically it is improper. And therefore the question is, what is going to be done, if anything, to keep U46 from spending that $4.8 million or whatever that dollar amount is that they got from us because in the meanwhile we are left without that money. Not only waiting for a solution. So if we have to wait for that money, why should somebody else be able to utilize that money?
Mr. Newton, I'm not sure I quite understand exactly what you're saying. So what?
Okay, that's fair enough.
No. So are you asking us to then refund the $4.8 million now?
Well,
but then how
Hey, can I have your attention, please? Hold on. Can I have your attention? It doesn't do us any good. There's a lot of angst in the room, myself included. It does no one any good to shout over people. So if we'd kindly let the gentleman ask his question again and clarify it, and then we'll get an answer.
Yeah. Tony, it's not a matter of refund. It's a matter of actually essentially putting it in escrow so that it can't be touched by U46 because it is not their money. It's the amount that they sought, but it's coming from the wrong people. It's not our fault that Kane County made this mistake.
No, I understand. Right, it's not U46's fault that Kane County made the mistake either. But we collected the pie that we were supposed to collect through the levy process. Mm-hmm. We followed the right steps. Kane County made their error. DuPage residents, unfortunately, as we've seen tonight, were overcharged. Next year, Kane County is going to be making up that difference. DuPage should go back down, but I'm not understanding what the rationale would be to set the money aside into escrow.
Because it got to you improperly. It came from the wrong people. Again, it may be by policy and maybe even legally, it may be acceptable to do that. I don't believe it's ethical for the school district to spend that money. It's not your money.
Let me take a stab at explaining what I believe he's asking. The $4.8 million that was collected from Bartlett residents in error he's suggesting could potentially be set aside and make sure that it gets returned next year. I believe that's what he's suggesting. Even though that was a part of the original budget. And I'm not answering the question, I'm just trying to clarify.
No, I understand, but I guess I would argue that holding back that $4.8 million takes a lot of opportunities away from students for a school year that's already underway. It does.
I know. I'm sure it does.
You have to understand. You have to understand the cycle that 85% of our budget is people. Most of those people are teachers. The deadline that the state imposes on school districts to issue notices to teachers that they don't have a job in order to reduce our budgets has come and gone last April. So in order to hold back $4.8 million, I don't know where we would be able to find $4.8 million to actually, it would be, you would have to come out of supplies or something. But I'm not understanding the purpose of asking for
again.
it to go
Shouting
to escrow.
isn't going to help anybody. So please, I mean, if we can let him answer and then go with the next question, and I'll answer the second part of the question as well.
So to answer your question, I don't see a rationale for putting it into escrow. Then it doesn't benefit anybody. It doesn't go back to DuPage County. We can't give it back to Kane County. So I'm not understanding the purpose of putting it into escrow.
It's not ethical.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I apologize. It's not that I misheard you. It's that I kind of forgot what you were asking. Sorry.
Okay. It has to do with consolidation of school districts.
Okay. The consolidation of school districts was definitely a topic of conversations. What has been consolidated is not necessarily the districts themselves. And up here, our districts are too large, truthfully, to be consolidated. U46 is the second largest school district in the state of Illinois. Right behind that, number 3 is in DuPage County as well, the Glenbard school districts. So the only school district bigger than both of those is the city of Chicago, which is a massive school district. So if you do see school districts combining, you will see it more of the downstate districts that are having to have 2 finance directors for school districts that are very small, 100, 200 kids, but due to the size of how big the land is, they will start combining those. And they have done that with regional officers of education down in southern Illinois to have those regional offices of education cover more counties and more school districts. But I do not foresee, as far as any of my plan on consolidation, I'm looking towards units of local government. You would be amazed, we have how many mosquito abatement districts that are coming off your tax bills, how many lighting districts, all those things. Those are what I'm picking for right now. If that is successful, then we'll find more ways to do it. But for now, the school districts, especially with the size of ours out here, are not on the block at all.
Yeah, and it's directly correlated to the fact that the school districts typically make up about 70 to 75% of the average property tax bill.
Right.
So it's got a huge target on its back, and I think what you get by staying away from consolidation and possibly breaking up some school districts is better accountability within the district.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Rich Frankie from Bartlett. I'd like to address another issue to Senator Cullerton and also the DuPage and Wayne Assessor's Office. In covering the issue with the Elgin Township in particular, I think everybody understands it. They don't like it, but there's another factor in our assessments that are basically how they're determined, particularly when we have 3 separate townships involved. Hanover Township, for example, had the largest drop in assessed valuation in the suburban area of 36% over the past few years. Elgin Township was about 31%, Wayne was 25%. In going through the equalization factor, what that means is 11% from Hanover Township and 5% from Elgin Township basically gets equalized and shifts directly into DuPage. Now that in itself says, okay, I guess that's fair. The issue, though, that's driving that is homes sold out of foreclosure. In Hanover Township alone, their rate was twice what it is in Wayne Township. I don't know what it was in Elgin Township, but I suspect that the driving factor is pretty much the same. Foreclosed homes should not be included in the process of calculating property assessments, but most significantly, it should not be included in township equalization factors. It completely distorts reality by not only reducing the assessment of the property, of the foreclosed property, but all similar properties in the area. I would ask that this process be changed, and Senator Cullerton, you're the guy to do it.
First, I guess I'll put it right towards Mike and Paul. Is that an option now? If not, part of the process this evening is more ideas. I like the idea.
That change occurred beginning in 2011. It was in response to the market tanking. That was a statutory change that we were suddenly required to use the foreclosure sales. And so, yes, if there's more foreclosures in Hanover Township, that's going to drag their values down faster than in Wayne Township. So, up until before the market turned, foreclosures were always excluded, and the criteria has been relaxed tremendously in terms of what sales are included in the sales ratio studies that are used. So, yes, we would like that statute changes as well.
Okay.
Actually, another significant part of that is, and I think everybody here can understand it, once that assessed valuation has been established, after the fact, they don't change. And in fact, as property values rise, hopefully, in the near future, the bottom line is still the same. The shift within the three townships won't change significantly because of it. But what I'm proposing is that we stop it in the future so that we don't go through this again.
And I would add that it's exacerbated by the fact that they use a 3-year average.
Yes.
Well, and it's also exacerbated by the fact that Cook County has a triennial assessment system, so their assessments change drastically in 1 year and then stay the same. The county equalizer may change, but the assessments for the township tend to stay fixed for 3 years, if I'm stating that correctly, Tom. Yes. So at the end of a bad market, their values are slashed in 1 year, whereas ours are creeping down year after year.
Hi, my name is Ina Sadelnik, and I have been a resident of Bartlett for 28 years and paying to U46. My property taxes have been going, although by the time we moved here, my children were out of U46. Now, my son also lives in Bartlett and has been paid taxes for 10 years to U46. And his children, who are now 6 and 8 years old, go to a parochial school because of the lack of proper education in U46. The last two superintendents really had a very negative impact on U46 as far as I'm concerned. They just cost the taxpayers a lot of money that wasn't necessarily spent on education. Now, somebody mentioned U46 has a lot of assets. I know the village of Bartlett tried to separate from U46 several years ago, and I just want to say U46 does not have those assets. Those assets belong to the people. We built the schools. We provided all the money for the property. As U46 is an administrator of the schools and the property, they don't own the property. Okay, I have heard, and I would like an answer from the representatives of U46, that U46 pays parents $1,000 a month to educate their children, and it could be just in specific areas. What kind of qualifications would those parents have to educate the children? It's the responsibility of the U46 to educate the children. And how can this be verified?
I can verify it. So for 3 years, we've had what we've called the Hispanic Parent Leadership Institute, where parents do earn stipends. They come in for courses every Saturday, once a month, not every Saturday, but once a month on Saturday for leadership training. The goal is to try to get more parents involved in their child's education, in PTOs, in other things. I'm trying.
Excuse me, please.
I'm trying to be factual.
If you could let him answer, it would be a lot easier to hear what he's saying. Thank you.
We also 2 years ago started up a similar one for African American parents. So that is factual, yes.
And why do we have to pay them? I mean, as a parent, I'm interested in teaching my children, and I did. And so does my son.
Right.
Why do we have to pay them to participate in this when that should be something that parents should do themselves without receiving our tax dollars for that?
The intent is not for them to learn how to teach their children. It's more how you get involved into PTOs, our Citizens Advisory Council.
Stop. Please stop. Please stop.
Their children ethics and morals. That's a parent's job.
I understand.
As I said, it was not a program to have parents learn how to teach their kid.
My folks are immigrants from Italy, and no one. Jesus, sit down, let him finish.
Hey. We will have order. We requested, I understand the angst here. I'm perfectly clear with that. And there is a lot of anger, and there's going to be, as we move forward, there's a lot of disappointment in this room. And we want some answers. So let's listen to the answers, ask the questions, and then my suggestion is that you pose many of these same answers to the U46 board.
Okay.
So to clarify, that was not a Board of Education decision. That was a decision made by the superintendent who was here at the time. It was not a Board of Education decision.
I hope that's going to be discontinued, and I don't know the qualifications of the next superintendent, but I hope it's better than the last two. Thank you.
Thank
you. Good evening, gentlemen. My name's Larry Nyberg. I, too, am a resident of Bartlett. I'd first like to thank the mayor and the senator for trying to keep some semblance of order. Good luck. I'm a little bit disturbed. I'm very happy with the young lady who spoke ahead of me trying to bring some attention on U46. U46 for a number of years has tried to equate itself as being almost as wonderful and great as the Chicago school system. I'm just kind of curious. Chicago requires all employees, from administrators, teachers, janitorial service, facilities people, to be residents of the district. I'm just curious for two questions. Does U46 require such a residential requirement? If not, why not? And number two, how many of the employees of the district also have their kids in the school? 5%, 10%, 25%? I'm just curious. Thank you.
Sure. I don't have the answer to the second question. I know one parent who lives within the school district and has two kids in the school district. That would be me. And I know of many others, but I don't have specific data on how many teachers and administrators have their students in U46. The law allows Chicago to require residency of its employees. I believe it's something I'd have to look into. I'm not sure if the law allows local school districts to require employees to live within the district. I know Chicago does and some home rule districts do. I'm not sure if that would apply to us, but I'd be glad to research it and see. It is something that we have had conversations about, and I can tell you that my contract requires me to live within the school district boundaries, and I'm thrilled to live within the school district U46 boundaries. I'm a proud parent of U46.
And I can tell you, coming as former mayor of a non-home rule community, we could not do the employees of the city having to live in the town, but we could do it for the supervisors and department heads. So our office can look into that as well and see if that's even part of whether or not that's even possible.
And that was, when we looked at it, Senator, that's what we found, at least on a cursory review, is that administrators, you can put it in individual administrators' contracts, but for collective bargaining units, it's a little bit more difficult, and it may require a law change. So,
well, if I just might make one more rhetorical statement, it would be really interesting to know why employees of the district don't send their school kids to the district. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Patty Rouse, and I've been a resident of Bartlett for 23 years. And I'm probably going to say some things that I've said in the last few meetings, but they definitely need repeating. I want to know when the state and the school district is going to get their budget under control. All I keep hearing about is this pie, and the big pie, and the portion of my burden on this pie. I'm real tired of this budget that keeps growing. I think there's a new budget out there for 2015, which has voted, I believe it's increases for the next few years for the U46 employees. I haven't had a raise in 5 years. I've been with my employer for 7 years, and when I had lost my job 7 years ago, I took a 30% cut in my pay. And I'm sure a lot of people in this room are suffering the same way I am. Yet, I keep getting increases in my taxes. $9,000 of my tax bill goes to U46. And I keep all I keep hearing are all these programs that you have, the free this and the free that, and it's just getting old. You need to get your spending under control. Not only U46, the state of Illinois needs to get their spending under control. People can't handle it anymore. We can't keep paying for all this. We are being driven out of our community. We're being driven out of our state. I have an elderly mother that's 84 years old. I have to leave this state because I can't afford to live here. Do you know how many people in this room are in the same boat I am? You made the comment, address the board, U46, and ask the questions. I was at the last board meeting, and I had asked the questions. You were sitting there. And I had asked Donna Smith. We had asked questions about, we were needing answers on, what were we talking to them about? About some of these programs, and they looked at us and said, we don't have to answer. We don't have to answer. What kind of an answer is that?
First, I'll address that one. I'm going to tell you that there's an election coming up in 2015 for school board members. That, as mayor of my town, it made my meetings last till well at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. But everybody got to speak, and everybody had the answers if we had them. If not, we got back to them within a day or two with the answer. If you're not getting the answers, then maybe that's incumbent on who you have elected in office right now. But I can also tell you this, and I pulled this up because I wanted to remember this. In 2012, in the city of Bartlett, when you talk about holding people accountable, in 2012, 15,751 people voted in Bartlett. In the municipal elections in 2013 and 2011, 5,400 people voted in Bartlett. So we have a very big epidemic of people paying attention to the larger races, paying attention to the two guys on TV right now who are beating each other up, paying attention to the presidential races. But your property taxes are judged and are spent by local government. And yet that is the lowest turnout you can ever imagine in an election. Nobody shows up to vote. We need to make sure that you're coming out to vote. Getting involved, if we're waiting until bad things occur to get involved, then it's going to be at catastrophic levels when we show up. I got involved in my town because I had a plumbing problem. and I didn't like. And then I started watching TV and seeing the way things went. That's how I started my involvement. And mine was kind of minor. I just didn't like I didn't get paid back in time after putting up an I-bond. And started paying attention and realizing that my involvement was going to make my community better, make where I was raising my kids better, and make my life better, and hopefully all my neighbors and friends. That is part of the biggest issues we have in this state that needs to be addressed. You have so many different taxing bodies, and yet 5,400 people show up to decide who gets to spend it, who gets to raise it, and who's in charge of it.
I think we all feel helpless. We don't know what to do. We feel we come to these meetings and we're going to walk away like, oh, well, that was great, great speech, but nothing's going to happen. I think that's what it is. And finally, this error, which we're all talking about, was what put the nail in the coffin, especially for me. I have had it. I am tired of the $1,000 a year increase in my taxes. I am tired. And you know what? I walked the streets and passed out flyers for this town hall meeting asking people to please attend. And I can't tell you how many people I talked to that said to me, we need to get out. We can't afford to live here. Mayor, what are you going to do? Houses are going up for sale like crazy in my neighborhood. And some of the people said they haven't had showings in over 6 weeks. People are not interested in moving to this community when they see that taxes are anywhere from $8,000 to $20,000.
Yeah. I understand exactly what you're saying. Friends of mine are in the same situation as well. When things like this, when bad things happen, I don't know that there's an instant solution right now. As the senator mentioned, I wish that there was something that we could do right now to change the last 2 years of errors. I can tell you that as much as we could, I went to bat to try to get it fixed sooner rather than later. And we sat in Paul's office for quite some time trying to figure out how we could do that. But there is no real easy solution to this. It's an unfortunate situation, and me, along with a lot of others, are going to hold on and see what the tax bill looks like next year.
Just one more thing. U46, I'm asking you to look at your budget that you just presented to us 2 weeks ago and look at where you can cut back, because we cannot keep going down this road.
So
we just can't.
Now that I've taken on this role, now the budget will still proceed on as it is because it has to be approved by the end of September by state law.
Let's ask for an extension.
But we will be, no, the state law won't allow for an extension, but we can always go back and revise it. Now you have to, please let me respond. State law requires school districts to file with the State Board of Education by September 30th their budget for the fiscal year. It's a requirement. If I don't do it, then ISB's going to, I don't know what they're going to do. But I don't want that coming after us. But we can always go back and amend the budget. I've already had a meeting with the full cabinet, the people that work directly for me, the assistant superintendents, and said we need to go back and take a look at the budget one more time. Because we will be looking at it one more time. And probably more often than that. I want to address the question you asked about raises. Anybody have kids in our system in 2008, 2009 school year, 2009, 2010? Anybody who has a teacher who works in our school district, knows a teacher who works in our school district, is employed by our school district? If you were here, you know that we have gone through significant budget reductions. When the economy tanked, we did cut approximately, I don't remember the exact amount, but we were looking for $25 million to $40 million in reductions. Not only did we do that, we took this on at the state level before Senator Cullerton got there. We started putting the signs on our marquees about how poorly the state funds education. We became a poster child. We were on CNN, BBC World News America, NBC Nightly News. We drained the pools. We fired 700 teachers. 700 teachers out of 2,500. We raised class sizes. We did, if you've been here in U46, you know how much pain there was from 2008 2009. The budget has not crept up that much since. In regards to raises, I want to concur with you that we have reached an agreement with our teachers that gives them a 1.5% increase this year, plus an additional 1% to buy more days for them to do professional development. That'll actually save us money in the long run. But prior to that, the raises, each of our employee groups agreed to a 1-year pay freeze. Administrators took 2 years of pay freezes. We lost lots of administrators, lots of teachers, and I promise you we will do our best to be more fiscally responsible, but we have been as responsive as we can to the economy.
And I think some of these programs that you have going on need to be eliminated. I think that's where we could save some money. And one last thing, when we go to these board meetings, I would like to have the board answer our questions and be accountable. When I sat there at that meeting, they literally were rolling their eyes and they were bored with the conversation. I was appalled, absolutely appalled.
Thank you.
My name is Larry Buckholz. I'm a retiree. I live in Wayne Township, unincorporated. Been there 25 years. I've been retired for 14 years. I want to know what's being done for senior citizens these days, because the assessment freeze is basically a joke. We get nothing for it at all. There should be some kind of a property tax freeze, at least for when you get to a certain age. I'm 74. I've paid, when I first moved into my house, I paid $3,000 in property taxes. You know what it is now? Over $14,000. And every year it's gone up 11, 12%. How are retirees supposed to keep up with these type of raises? I'm on a fixed income. How do I keep up with it? And a direct question to maybe you, Mr. Cullerton, is, are you in favor of a property tax freeze? Or a decrease, yes.
I would love a property tax decrease, but the state does not do property taxes. We are responsible for income tax. Again, that is why I brought that number out earlier. Your property taxes, that's the lowest voter turnout you get. And that's the highest number you're paying probably every year. We are responsible for income tax, retail tax, other taxes, corporate taxes, and I can tell you that I am voting no on extending the tax increase. That was my promise to my voters, and that was my promise now, and that'll be how I vote. The scary part is both candidates for governor want to keep it. One wants to keep it permanent, the other wants to keep it and then maybe roll it back. But I know myself and other suburban legislators, Democrat and Republican, want that to go away. They want that 5% to go back down to 3.75, especially the 1/3 of us that are new. We didn't make the promise, and now they're expecting us to try to fulfill it. That's not our job. Our job is to come in and make sure that the older people there keep their word. I would love to freeze property taxes, but that's not really our function as the state, because we don't collect property taxes. We don't set property tax rates. We have lots of focus groups on seniors that look at homestead exemptions and ways that we can make it easier or better. I do not know if any laws are going to be coming out in that vein. Again, I would say make sure to stay up with us and keep up with our legislative update, because we do update on senior issues, and we do update. We will be having a senior resource fair here come October that we will have people from all different agencies throughout the state. I would love for you to come meet with them. We'll even have somebody here from Department of Revenue who could possibly go over with that with you as well.
As far as the assessment freeze, nobody, senior citizens that I know of, are benefiting at all from that. So what I'd like to see is, when you get to a certain age, at least, you should have a property tax freeze. We shouldn't continue to pay these kind of taxes.
Well,
I'll say one other. Let me say one other thing too. And I know everybody has to pay their fair share. I realize that. But I've never had a child in U46, and I've paid over $200,000 in taxes, property taxes. I've never had a child in that school. Never.
I just want to comment on the senior freeze. I agree. It's been a disaster since the market tanked and assessments started going down, because every year someone who had built up a large freeze, every year that freeze would shrink as the assessment declined. The problem with the freeze, in theory, is that someone who applied for it early, who's low income, was getting a larger freeze exemption than someone who just applied for it. They both may be in their 80s, they both may be low income. So it was very unequal because someone happened to have had it longer. And now more than 50% of the applicants who qualify are receiving nothing. So they've seen their taxes actually increase at a greater rate as they're returning to the same level that their neighbors are paying. So there really isn't a way to freeze taxes themselves, because
my wages are frozen.
The rate changes.
My wages are frozen.
But so what we need a huge senior exemption for low-income seniors. Other states have done it. The current senior exemption is still pretty minimal. So we need legislation.
Yeah, you need something.
Something based on advanced age or something based on income. Something needs to be done to provide more measurable relief. Not necessarily a freeze, but a large exemption would.
And I'll just say one thing too. I retired from Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. I worked for them for close to 40 years. And a good portion of my pension check goes to U46, where I've never had a kid in that school. I think that's unfair.
Hi, my name is Sandra Bruno. I've been a resident in Wayne for 21 years. Since that time, my taxes have more than doubled. My home value is down 40 to 45%. The homes in my subdivision are up for sale for a year to a year and a half. My tax bill this year was way over $20,000. $15,000 goes to U46. Yep. And I don't have any children in the school. I've not used U46 either. And I don't mind paying my fair share, because I believe that if the children are educated properly, they're going to run this country for us, but I don't feel they're being educated properly. I don't think we're getting our value for the money that we put into the education in the school district. I do have grandchildren that are in the school district, and what I see them come home with, I am appalled at this Common Core and all this other new stuff that's coming in is not teaching our children. They're not going out into the world being sensible, strong-minded people. They're being torn down and they're being dummied down. And I don't like seeing my money go for that. And I don't understand, if U46 has an excess in their money, in their budget of $40 million, why did you have to take $2,000 more from me this year? Why didn't you take the money out of the excess that you have for this coming budget? Why does that money just sit someplace? And what about the interest that's collected on that $40 million? That adds to it. That's compounded. What are you coming to me for when you got money?
So I just wanted to address a few points that you made. Number one, the Common Core that's not a U46 initiative.
I understand.
That's right from the feds down to the states, and the states approved it. The second point is I want to point out that Wayne Bartlett has some of the best schools in the state if you look at the state report card data compared.
How do we rate at a national level?
If we could please let him answer the question, it makes life a whole lot easier for people who want to hear.
Where are our schools on a national level?
There is no true comparison on the national level unless you look at the PISA exam, which is more of an international. But state by state, if you want to look across the state of Illinois, if you look at similarly situated school districts and similarly situated schools, we have excellent schools. Bartlett High School named two years in a row to Newsweek's best schools. Elgin High School named 2 years for U.S. News and World Reports. There's a lot of things that perhaps the community is not aware of that we need to do a better job promoting. But if you look at the state report card data and compare Wayne Elementary to other schools, you will see that they're faring very, very well. You had mentioned too the interest on the $40 million. I'm not sure what $40 million you're referring to. I was talking earlier about the $40 million in reductions that we had in our budget.
No, isn't there $40 million left over from
we do have
previous
fund
budgets?
We do have fund balances, yes, but those fund balances aren't earning interest. That's our most of that is working cash to make sure that we have enough cash on hand to pay our payroll, to pay the bills.
$40 million.
Well, out of our budget is about $480 million each year currently. And of that, what's our cash on hand? I'm going to let Mr. Burnich answer this question on cash on hand.
Yeah, we do need to have a certain amount of fund balances to get through the year because, like, you pay your tax bills in June and September, and then, we need to have money to get through the rest of those months. So usually by the end of September, that would be the high point for the district's cash, and then for the next 6 months, our cash balances are drawn down to pay the funds until we get some tax funds from Cook County. Last year, our low point, we did get down to about $40 million, and that for our number of days cash on hand, that would operate the district for maybe 35 days. That's a little bit over a month. Our total budget's $488 million, so that's about $40 million a month.
I have another question. This $1,000 that's being paid to parents to get involved with their children, and it's being offered to Hispanic and to the Black community, yet they're 70% or close to 70% of the population of the students, and the other ethnic groups consist of maybe 30%. So aren't those the minority? And if you're offering money to parents to get involved, shouldn't everybody be offered that money? And my taxes went up $2,000 this year. I paid 2 parents to get involved with their kids. That really ticks me off.
Yep. I want to clarify that it's not a large group of parents that we have in these programs.
It doesn't matter because you know what's going to happen? When these parents go tell other parents, hey, you know what? I get $1,000 for going to one meeting a month or whatever it is, you're going to encourage other people to do it. It's an entitlement program that will continue to grow.
And I would say, I believe that was a policy under the former superintendent. Am I correct? Wait. I'm asking a question. I believe that was a program under the former superintendent, correct?
It was Dr. Torres, the superintendent who just left, that did create that program, yes.
I would also believe that you have a new change in leadership here in U46, and you will also probably, if I'm getting the correct feeling from the room, I would imagine next April there's probably going to be some other changes in an election. But the fact is that the people you have now, are here addressing your concerns. Part of what I have always heard when I was knocking doors here 2 years ago and talking to residents was they couldn't get the former superintendent to come out and talk and answer questions. Is that correct? Yet your new leadership is here willing to answer the questions. So they're already showing that they're willing to come out and talk and meet face to face to discuss issues, to discuss opportunities, and find a way to get this district better. So I think I think he's been on the job all of 2 weeks as CEO?
As CEO, yes.
As CEO, he's been on the job for 2 weeks, where it's his ship now as opposed to having to follow somebody else as captain. That captain is gone. Time to let somebody who understands and is talking to you, who also has children in this district and is paying the same tax burden you are. I can't imagine he's excited to watch his taxes go up either. So the reality is is you need to help find ways to save money, but not just bash entirely what's going on, but realize there is a new direction. And if the board needs to be changed, then you need to have a board that's more accountable to you. But the fact is that's not going to happen when 15,000 people show up for a general election and only 5,000 people show up for the school board election.
Yes.
So please make sure you're involved.
Just last comment, I pray that all the things you say that you are working towards are not just empty promises. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rob DeHaan. I've been in Bartlett since July of 2011, so just a little more than 3 years. Unlike everyone else, I've just gotten here. In the 3 years, just a brief background on my personal situation, in the 3 years that I've been here, my property taxes have gone up 45%. And I'm paying 3.7% of the fair market value of my house in property tax. Quick research with Google shows that the national average of property tax as measured of your fair market value is about 1.2, 1.4%, somewhere in that range. At 3.7%, that's not high, that's off the charts. We are the property tax capital of America, from what I can tell. So I think we are in a housing crisis here. This is a big deal. This is a problem. And this is my second meeting I've gone to, and I know that everyone is doing a great job as best as they can, and there's no ill will here, but at the same time, there's a complete abdication of responsibility. This is the second night of nothing but, it wasn't my mistake, I have to follow the law, I can't do anything. So my question to you, Senator Cullerton, as good a job as these men beside you are doing, they are either unwilling or unable to stop preying on me as a taxpayer, and I need someone to protect me. So I'm asking you, you said that you can't, but I'm challenging you, can't the state of Illinois think about putting caps on property tax? That regardless of the situation, from year to year, there is no more than 5 or 6 or 7% increase, no matter what, so that a person like me doesn't end up paying 45% increase over 3 years, or a cap on the rate that we need to recognize. If you're asking people to pay 3.7%, that is unsustainable. We can't go on like this. So I really do think the state needs to look at putting in caps and limits that supersede everything else, regardless of how many districts I'm in or coverage, no matter what. This is it, folks. You can only pull this much out of that guy's property tax ATM. Deal with it.
And it was Rob, right?
Yes, sir.
Rob, I will say there are property tax caps, but they are percentages. And really it's up to each taxing body if they don't want to raise their levy every year. Now if you're asking us to set guaranteed nobody can do it at a certain time, we can look at that, and then that's going to be the will of essentially the General Assembly telling local governments and everybody else, you can't raise taxes. At the same time, they're going to look at the state of Illinois and go, yeah, you can't pay your bills. And we're trying to rectify that, but for right now, that's going to be our biggest problem. But we can definitely set, and I could venture that Kevin probably will not increase the levy this year. I imagine if U46 is smart, they won't increase the levy this year. I know that the DuPage County Board hasn't increased their levy in 3 years. Now it's gone up based on assessment value, but as far as what their cap value is, they have stayed that way. If you're asking us to look at ways to set it based on dollar amount, I can guaranteed look at it, but I don't know how I would set it at this venture as I'm trying to change the entire tax code of property taxes with just some of the formulations we have now. I'm not sure what the tax cap is for U46, but I know there's a cap. They can't go above a certain threshold. Am I correct?
Let me just address the tax cap, because there has been tax caps since 1991. They do cap, but as the senator said before, there's so many taxing districts. Like this past year, what your tax bill this year for 2013, the tax cap was 1.7%. So that means the asking amount that the district was allowed to receive was 1.7 above what they received the year before. Now, there's exceptions to all this, and one major part is debt. That is not a capped fund. So there's different funds that the district can ask for every tax, whether it's the village, the township, the highway, any department. There's funds that they can ask for. There's certain funds that are outside the cap. And the General Assembly passes these laws saying, okay, rec for handicap for a park district is a fund that's outside the cap. So when we say each taxing district is capped at 1.7 or 1.7% was this year's cap, but then there's these exceptions to the rule, which that increases your bill more than the 1.7%. One is debt, so any type of bonding. Rec for handicap is another fund, and those are the things that increases above the tax cap. So there is a tax cap. The cap works to a point in that it caps what they can ask for, and that's the key. Rates fluctuate back and forth. As I always say, if four people are dividing a pie with $1, everybody pays 25 cents. If there's only 3 people paying it, the rate goes from 25 cents to 33 cents. The rate goes up. The ending total is still that $1, but it's how many people are paying that total bill, and that's where the rate fluctuates. So you don't necessarily want to freeze the rate in the sense that if values go up, more people are paying into it, your rate will go down. But you do want to cap the asking amount. The tax cap does do that, but with exceptions. Right.
To say again on my point, I hear you explaining it.
Right.
As a guy who's averaging 15% year over year,
right.
I don't believe there are caps.
I understand. Right. I understand it, and unfortunately, I'm a numbers person, and the numbers do work. But you have, say, 15. If you look at your text, we have 15 districts. If each one gets a 1.7% increase, and that's without, forget the debt, if they just got a 1.7% increase, that's where you're seeing these increases. So it's the number of districts, each one gets to increase their rate or their asking amount by 1.7. Now, it's up to the districts. They don't have to ask for it. This gentleman's question, right, the district flat and it doesn't ask for more than the levy, they're not going to get the 1.7% increase. But yeah. Most taxing districts, except for the county and a few other districts, do not ask for their maximum amount.
Yeah, just to dovetail, and Rob, just to pinpoint a little bit more information on your question. The village, I totally agree with you. There is no reason why there should be escalating expenses. And we brought this up at a board meeting. We have the same number of residents in Bartlett for quite some time. So don't need any additional capital to service those particular residents. If you look at the percentage increases on your tax bill, I'd ask you guys to compare last year to this year and just do some simple math. And you can see which districts are increasing their percentage the most.
U46. Yep.
My name is Jay Langfelder. It feels good to be on this side of the microphone. But we have a major issue, and this question is directed to Tony Sanders. I understand you have a new position, and we talked after the meeting at the budget. Last year, I addressed the trustees at U46 to do line item by line item, and yet they still increased their budget. I understand contracts, union contracts, I completely understand it. But when you have homeowners that have 11 to 18% increases in property taxes on U46, and they represent at least 68% of our property taxes, it's a huge jump. So as a CEO, last year there was 9 elementary school on the watch list. Now we're up to 10. You say we have the best schools? We have 10 elementary schools that are on the watch list. What are you going to do to get those 10 elementary schools off the watch list? Because you stated we have excellent schools here.
Correct. When I said excellent schools, I was referring to Bartlett, I was referring to Wayne, I was referring to test scores. If you look at, I think there's more to measure from a school than just the test scores, because the tests change, the tests continue to change. I think you have to look at the low income rate. I think you have to look at a lot of different factors of things that happen in schools. The schools that you're referring to predominantly are in Elgin and Hanover Park, and actually they changed the law. They're no longer in restructuring. So, but what am I going to do specifically for those schools? Again, only being in the job for 2 weeks, we need to continue to expand our dual language program, because I do believe that is the way that you're going to, in the Elgin area, that's the way you're going to tackle the academics and the needs of the students. We have to go with the Common Core, as the woman before stated, so we will continue to invest in professional development around the Common Core. I know that there's some disagreement from some people around whether the Common Core is the right way to go, but if you look at it as just the learning standards of what kids need to know and be able to do by certain grade levels in certain topics, it's no different than the Illinois learning standards that we had before. They're just more rigorous. The more rigor we have, the better our kids will do.
Well,
but I didn't know if there was a question about the line item by line item in the budget.
The line item is basically we're spending at least almost $12,000, to my understanding, for each student in U46.
When you count instructional and operational, correct. That we have to pay for the buildings and the lights and the gas for the buses and those things too.
But that increases each and every year, but their test scores are lower and lower in those elementary schools.
But you have to take the test scores in the context of the changing state test.
Mm-hmm. But yet, the administration, and I understand it was the past administration, they changed the grading scale to a 1 to 5. Is that correct?
The secondary level, there was a change to a 1 to 5. That's been amended again this year, so it's now a 0 to 4 for secondary schools. If you have a student in the school, I think so far the reaction I've heard from parents and from students has been much more positive to the change.
How about the teachers, though?
And from the teachers. When I went to my son's back to school night, the teachers all shared it very happily. We've not had anybody come out and complain about the new scale this year. Mm-hmm. Because they did amend it so that there is a 0 and there is the opportunity kids don't automatically gain a 50% on a test that they failed.
And then last year, the last superintendent appointed almost 10 individuals, and he called it their cabinet. And it was almost a takeoff of the Director, Equity of Social Justice. And he did quote, and I was at that meeting, this is his cabinet, and it was 10 positions that were created, and they were earning over $100,000 a year.
Those positions, now the new position was the Chief of Equity and Social Justice. That position's not been filled this year. The other positions were positions that had been in existence. I'm not sure. I don't know that there were that many new positions. Those were not new positions. Those have been. We are a large district. I think perhaps if you knew the scale of our district.
I know the intensity of the large scale.
So the one thing, so we did add. No, you're right. We did add 2 positions. We added the Office of Equity and Social Justice, which has not been filled in 8 months. And then we added an assistant superintendent of elementary, because we have 40 elementary schools, and for one person to evaluate 40 principals and 2 early childhood centers was an impossible task. So to actually add more focus to the elementary schools, we did add an assistant superintendent over that.
But yet our class sizes are getting bigger and bigger each year. We have at least 28 to 30 students in each class sizes. And that's not filtering down to the teachers to help them out. So I know you've only been in the position for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and congratulations on your salary increase.
Thank you.
So I'm going to hold you accountable. I will hold you accountable, because if you take these 5 people, and these are the first 5 rows, if you stand up, please. Just stand up, please. To Senator Cullerton's statement, only 9% voted in the local election Yet 85% of your tax dollars go to the private or to these entities. We need more of you to vote. And we need more of you to register to vote. So I will be very active. And then another part is there is a new legislation, and this question is for Senator Cullerton. It's the Property Tax O'Hare Homestead Act. And it was introduced by Martin J. Moreland, and it is House Bill 6294. And what my concern is, it's a bill that's going to give tax exempt or relief to residents in the O'Hare area. And what my concern is, in DuPage County, if these individuals, if this law passes, they're going to get tax relief on their property taxes. Well, we know government wants that revenue, so they're going to tax somebody, and I'm afraid it's going to be this district. So my question to Senator Cullerton, where do you stand? Because Jenny Burke, who's a candidate of a state rep who's running in this district, is for this bill.
And I would say pretty much the entire eastern part of that district is for that bill as well as the other side of O'Hare Airport, which is Schiller Park, Norwood. They're all looking for it as well. I think it probably will not pass the General Assembly. Part of that bill, though, I bet you will pass when it calls for increase in soundproofing and it calls for stricter measures on the airlines. Thankfully, that's another part of my district, so while I've had large meetings on this issue, on that side of my district, that is the largest issue going. We have had a statute that's out of California that talks about the levels of planes coming into O'Hare. Obviously, if you've ever been to LA Airport, they're pretty compressed. By DC, they're very compressed. So they have to come in at a higher level. What we're finding is that the planes are not coming in at a higher level. They're coming in below the floor, and they're causing severe and significant damage. They're causing damage to homes. If you go to condos, there are a couple condo buildings in Wooddale and Bensonville. If you go onto the 6th floor, you can feel it shake. You can watch things shake out of the cabinets of these condominiums. And these things were never designed to take that impact, but the flight patterns that are occurring from the airport, there is a beacon far out that planes are supposed to go straight to that beacon before they start leveling off or before they make their turn. They're actually turning prior to the beacon and going over residences that aren't supposed to be in the flight pattern and have never felt the flight pattern. So I don't think you'll see the property tax exemption go in due to the fact that every local government will go, well, wait a second, if you cut everybody's taxes, how are all the other bills going to pay? Are going to be paid? And if you do cut property taxes, you're really going to be taking down some of the schools, and you'll be taking and hurting some municipal services. But at the same time, we will be finding funding to do more soundproofing and to get that accomplished. But I much like this room, I don't disparage their fight, and I also don't think that their fight, that they're not going to continue to fight to get a lower property taxes until the issues are settled at O'Hare. If we get those issues settled at O'Hare, then we won't see the necessity for that bill. But while it's going on now, you've got some really, really angry people who on a Saturday night can't go out of their backyard, who at 1:30 in the morning are having monstrous freight airplanes go right over their house, waking up children, waking up their families, that weren't there 18 months ago, and weren't there 10 months ago. And they weren't, and from their perspective, the past 10 years were very one-sided meetings that were not in their district, that were not in where the new flight patterns were going to go. They were held in Schaumburg, they were held in the city, and they were not told that this was going to be approaching and coming to their area. So you've got Wooddale, Itasca, Bensonville, Addison, and Bloomingdale, who are all extremely upset by this. Now, if we could fix it by increasing soundproofing and making sure that the planes are actually doing the patterns they're supposed to, we won't see the need for the property tax exemption.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How you doing today? My name is Joe Caduto. I live in Wayne, and I just want to make a statement. U46 is our main problem here. You look at your tax bill, 75% of that money is going to U46. We got to first of all, we got to vote these people out that are on that school board. And don't let these numbers fool you. We got a lot more where these came from. We're all united in this, from Bartlett, Wayne, parts of Carroll Stream, parts of Hanover. We did a lot of work with this. We're not going to put up with this no more. You took $10,000 of my taxes this year to U46. That's ridiculous. If it wasn't for U46, I wouldn't even notice the county, the village. That would be a drop in the bucket. U46 keeps coming to the well. Guess what? The well is drying up. What are you going to do when we walk away from these homes? Where are you going to get your money? Seriously, you got people that are going to walk away from these houses and just leave them. What are you going to have? Nothing. Elgin don't pay these high taxes. And you know what? What did your board member say? We should move to Elgin? I forgot that one.
I'm not sure if there was, you said you were going to make a statement, so I didn't know if there was a question.
No, it's not a question. I'm just making a statement here.
Okay.
You know, I paid for my kids to go to school. We were in 211 in District 54. It's a very good school district. The taxes are low. And it's Cook County. And it's still a top school district at School District 54, 211. When my kid came out here, he was 3 years ahead. When he told the teacher that he had that, they called him a liar. They called me and my wife in. I got everything from School District 54, gave it to her. I said, you should do your research before you call my kid a liar. And I took my kid out of U46. But we're not going to keep paying these high taxes for U46 for an inferior school district.
Good evening, gentlemen. First of all, let me just say thank you for coming here and allowing yourself to be available for us, because it is important that we have somebody that answers. Because, first of all, I will say that one of the biggest problems that I have as a taxpayer and a resident of this state is that I do not trust my government, any of them. Having said that, I have about 5 points I'd like to make, and some of them include a couple of questions for some of you. The first thing I would like to say, in reiteration of what you said, Senator, people vote. I go to the voting ballot and nobody is there. This is the time to make your statement at the ballot. My first question is for Mr. Hines. When this credit is made to our taxes and calculated, is that credit going to be calculated at my home's value as it is at the time of the credit being made, or at the time when the error was made?
It's going to be made at the time. It's going to be your 2014 value, which is what you're going to pay in 2015.
Well, my values are going down. Why I'm paying values then?
When the value, but you got to remember, we're looking at a dollar amount. So if your values go down, the rate goes up. So you're dividing the $4.8 million into the value of the district. So if the value of the district is cut in half, the rate will double to still collect that $4.8 million. That's why the dollar amount isn't as important as the rate, because the rate generates the dollars.
Okay, let me interrupt you for a second. Okay?
No, that's fine.
Because
it's very complicated.
That sounds really good to, in terms of, it's a whole lot of stuff that, quite frankly, I don't understand. And you guys have a rate that you miscalculated at, and you have the correct rate now. You have an amount that I overpaid. Why am I not going to be getting credit for that amount that I've overpaid? So there's no question as to the calculations then, the calculations now, the value then, the value now. I overpaid. When I overpay a department store, the grocery store, I show them my receipt and they give me a refund for the exact amount that I've overpaid.
That's correct. But as we stated, the law only provides for us to credited in the following year. So I cannot go back and say, I would
In
love,
the
believe me,
following
there's
year,
nothing
but
more
what
than
is-
I would love to give you if you paid $300 more to give you the check back. But the law doesn't allow me to do that calculation to give the money back to you immediately. As the senator says, we're
I
going to
don't
work.
want it immediate. I don't
Right,
care about
right.
immediately. I want to know that I'm getting the credit back for the amount that
You
I've
will get the
overpaid.
credit back. You're going to get the prior year adjustment is going to be about around $4.8 million for the entire DuPage portion of the district, and that's going to be calculated on the 2014 rate or the value of your homes, but that will still generate the $4.8 million. So it doesn't matter whether your values go up or down, the rate will reflect the up or down to create the $4.8 million savings or credit back. Now, the key, because we got to remember, we keep trying to hit this moving target in that we don't know what the levy is going to be. So I have to first find out what the levy is going to be for 2014. Then once that levy is calculated, what portion, and that's where we get into now the 2013 burden that the state's going to tell me what it is, the 2013 Cook County value, but it's going to be put on with the 2014 DuPage value and the 2014 Kane County value. Because Cook County cannot give me what their 2014 value is going to be because they won't have it when we go to billing next April.
All right. Now, that just is kind of a reiteration of what you said, and that's okay. But let me just, that's an adequate answer for that question.
Right.
Thank you. But let me just sidebar by that. Everybody at this table so far has told me you live in this district, right? Yes? Is that acceptable to you? Is what he's telling you, is that acceptable to you?
I do not live in the U46 district. I live in the Senate district, the 23rd district. I live on the eastern half of the district.
I don't know how government works.
I will say it's acceptable to me until I can fix the law, because that's all I've got. And we have the statute that it's at right now. And until we get a chance to fix it and change it, and until we actually go to votes and a governor to sign it, all we've got is what's on the books right now. So I have to accept it. There's no, until I can change the actual law, pardon me, until I can change the actual law, I've got no other choice but to accept it and dedicate myself to fixing it.
Okay, thank you. I
Certainly.
appreciate that. As a secondary question to that one, though, when that's calculated in 2014, will that include all the new residents of the county, of the district, that's going to be divvying up all of this money that we're going to be credited, and now all these other people are going to be getting the, excuse me. And
Well,
then-
it's right. It's going to include everybody who's in U46. So if there's
Then or now?
Now in 2014. So in 2014, we're going to take the value of the entire district that's in DuPage County.
So people who may have not paid the overpaid taxes in 2012 are going to get a credit for what I've overpaid in 2012.
Well, if they paid, say if they sold their home and the new homeowner is coming in, then yes. But I mean, there's only if there's a new property actually coming in. So if there's a new home built that didn't pay last year, but they're going to pay this year, they're going to see their tax rate, because it's the rate that's going to drop that's going to save you the $4.8 million.
That doesn't seem fair to me. But thank you.
But again, it's the law, and we have to.
I understand. I do. I'm not trying to
We-
cut
we
you
do
off.
the-
I
we do
just
the
have
math.
a
We do
couple
the
other
math.
questions that I
Right.
want to get to. So
Right.
that was an adequate answer.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, that's what that statute. Right, right. But he's. What we do is we calculate we're going to go back and calculate the 2014 tax rate for U46.
Right. Why?
That's the prior year adjustment that we're going to make. That's where the $4.8 million comes from. That is correct. I am now going to take the Cook County value. They're going to give me the 2013 value, and the state gives me the 2013 burden. I'm going to put that in and re-extend the taxes that we extended. The rate that you saw this year on your tax bill did not include the 2013 Cook value. It was calculated with using the 2012. Once I get the 2012, we do this every year. Once I get the 2013 Cook value and the burden, I'm going to re-extend it and say, did we collect too much or not enough from the DuPage portion of U46? In this case, we're going to calculate and say, it's going to be around 4.8 million that we over collected, which means then we make a prior year adjustment in the next year, which will be on their 2014 tax bill. Now, when I calculate the 2014 tax bill, I'm only going to use the 2013 Cook value, the 2013 Burden, Kane's 2014 value, and DuPage's 2014 value. We're going to calculate that, come up what DuPage owes, subtract the 4.8 million, come up with that rate. That's the rate you're going to see in your tax bill next year. By law, I can go back 1 year.
If you don't mind.
But I can only go back 1 year with the statute if I'm using the prior year adjustment. We went back and redid 2012 because the burden was incorrectly given to us in 2012. We went back because we haven't flipped on the 2014 yet. So I really recalculated 2012, which will get moved on to 2013, which will then be calculated for 2014. I know it gets very complicated, but if you can kind of follow it along, we went back and recalculated 2012, found out that instead of being short 3.8 million, it should have been only 2 million. That's that 1.8 or that 40 cents as I keep talking about. That would have been what you saw this year. That doesn't make up for the Cook County value now that I'm going to get, which there's really two adjustments being made for 2014 taxes that you will see, and that will lower your tax rate.
I'll just say again, though, that just doesn't really seem fair. You've got all these moving targets, and I paid money that I've worked very hard for toward the state. And quite frankly, again, I'll go back to my first statement. I don't trust government to give me what I'm due. And so what I'm looking at sitting here, as I'm sure most of these people are, is that we've paid our hard-earned dollars to this bankrupt state, and we're not going to get it back. I
would just say that the calculation, you will see the 4.8. And what I'm going to try to do is, if I can do this, because there's about 14,000 households, actually come up with a letter to show here's what it would have been without that 4.8 million, and here's what it would have been with the 4.8 million taken out. Then you're going to see that rate on your tax bill will be the one with the 4.8 taken out. I'm going to try to get that without running up costs. You know, the county is going to be after me not to send out a lot of extra postage, but we're going to work on that issue.
So if I can chime in here, what I requested Paul to try to do next year, in lieu of not correcting it immediately, is to make sure that we separate that out so it doesn't get lost in all of the minutia. Right? I want it separated out so we get a letter or something saying this year's your money, this was the money that was taken and given because of the error. So that's what he's explaining.
So that's why I'm going to try to get you a letter where it's actually going to show the two different rates and the dollar amounts.
Okay.
Yeah. I will work with the treasurer because it's not my tax bill. The treasurer does the tax bill. I will see if the treasurer will do that rather than a letter. But it may be easier for me to do the letter. But we'll get you the information, one way or the other.
Okay. A couple other quick statements that I have in regards to U46. I've been a resident of this community for 10 years. I have no children in this district either. I pay an awful lot of money. And you say that the Bartlett schools are really good schools, as well they may be. But I live at Schick and 59 here, and if I had kids, they'd be going to South Elgin High School, not Bartlett, which is a mile away, which I don't really quite understand. But since I don't have children in the district, it hasn't been a problem for me. But it's a problem for the value of my neighborhood, because my neighbor sends his daughter to parochial school. Another neighbor homeschools their child. People move into my community, and they live there for 5 years when they have their children, and when we reach school age, they move out. I'm paying an awful lot of money for what is perceived to be, which you may not believe it to be, but it is perceived to be a lower quality school district, primarily comprised of South Elgin schools. And while if you want to improve the value of our community and the people that want to live and work and build their businesses here, the kids that are in my neighborhood should be going to Bartlett High School.
Can I just make a comment on that? I spoke to U46 at length with most of the people in this room were around when Bartlett tried to defect, to separate. And that was illogical, I guess, from the senator can get into the details or whatever. But the next best thing in my mind would be to try to redraw those lines. Redraw those maps. I know I know that there's people that live half a mile away from Bartlett High School and they go clear to South Elgin.
Yeah.
So that is on the radar, and I've spoken to the school district about that, and it's complex, but it is something that we're trying to get some answers.
And Mayor, if you don't mind me tacking on to that, your response, we are looking at attendance boundaries. The process is underway right now with our Citizens Advisory Council, and we are looking to redraw boundaries. Can I assure you that individuals from Bartlett won't go to South Elgin High School? No, that's not the way attendance boundaries work. But we do have a process going so we can address, because South Elgin High School is over-enrolled. I mean, they've got 2,800 kids. We need to make some changes to bring it down.
Thank you. Finally, I just have one more statement, gentlemen. I'd like all your attention, mostly your senator, because I think this has most to do with you. When I look at my tax bill, as another gentleman says, 75% of it goes to U46 that I don't pay anything. We've covered it. But I look at my tax bill, and everything else on that bill says pension, 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 pension. There must be 10 pensions that I'm paying on my tax bill. I work hard for my money. I have a 401k, and it's well underfunded. I'm paying everybody's pensions, and why? And the state, the government of this state does nothing about pension. They keep taking our money and taking our money and taking our money, and I see it every 6 months. And this is an opportunity, and this is why you have more of a problem than anything, is that all these people here are tired of it. We don't want to pay thousands of dollars for you, government, to be retired for working for 4 years. Do something about it, please.
Just to sort of fill everybody in on the pension.
And I realize you've stated that you don't take a pension, so my apologies.
No worries.
It wasn't directed at you personally.
No worries. I came here to get beat up, so and not literally. So please let me walk out of here. But the fact is there is a pension bill that was signed by the governor, was passed, reduces pensions immensely, and it's sitting in court. There are many people who think it's unconstitutional and it won't pass court. There has been a ruling on some of the health care options that were part of the pension clause that were a separate issue that got overturned that said it was unconstitutional to take those away. If that same scenario occurs with this pension, we're going to have some major catastrophic budget problems. We already do. But we're trying to fix those, and we're moving forward. I will tell you, when I went into office in January of 13, we were over $9 billion in debt and almost at 365 days behind on our bills. As of today, with the Comptroller's Office, Judy Bartzapinka put that we are at $5.1 billion in debt, and that we are just under 100 days in our past due bills. That came directly from the Comptroller's Office. The fact is we're still going to have to deal with those issues, but if this thing doesn't go through court, there is going to be a major problem. Now, there is another pension bill out there that never got called in the House, that most people felt was constitutional, but was also agreed to by all of the unions. It was Senate Bill 2404. It passed with an overwhelmingly majority, bipartisan majority. I believe it was 41 votes. There's only 59 votes in the Senate. 41 people voted for that bill. It got sat, and it never got called in the House. That bill is still sitting there. If a ruling comes back that says the pension that got passed is illegal, we could still bring 2404, which would be constitutional. It would not save as much money, but it would also have a direct funding mechanism where you have a fee that is coming out of, or a bill that's coming out of the state that goes directly to that pension payment. So there won't be, and there will be guarantees that the citizens of Illinois can sue the General Assembly if they do what they did in the 90s and the early 2000s, which is not fund the pension. A lot of times people go, well, why isn't our pensions funded? Because there were many times we borrowed to make our pension payment. There are many times that we didn't make the pension payment. Heck, there's stained glass windows in the parking garage, the public parking garage in Naperville. Why do you need stained glass windows? But that was a project that was given to a legislator instead of paying into the pensions. So what you're going to see now, and I'd love to say it didn't happen, but it did happen. Go ahead, take that.
Forgive me. I can't let that one go too far.
But the fact is that you will see if this bill doesn't pass the Supreme Court. They're hoping for a ruling by December. Then 2404 will be called, and while it doesn't take as much away or doesn't save as much money as Senate Bill 1, if it passes the constitutional muster, it actually gives us a path to getting out of the hole.
What can we as citizens do to help you improve that?
Well, I think you did a great job last year by electing me.
Okay, sit down now.
But I think realistically, staying informed, and I keep saying it over and over, vote. Get out there, vote. Get out there and bring people in who understand issues and who want to get things accomplished. Part of the reasons that people elected me was when I was sitting at the door, I gave the story. I took over the village of Villa Park with a 58-day working fund balance. I left with close to 104 days of working fund balance because we were able to find efficiencies. We were able to consolidate. We were able to find ways to make government work better. We were taking a lot of the glut out. And that's what we need to do in this state, and that's what we're working towards in this state as well. But it's a lot to do.
Can I just ask one question? I know I'm out of line, but when you're saying that the state doesn't have money, can you tell me where does this money come from? All these projects going on, like the Elgin repair,
Well,
the construction going on there, and I saw that they took down all the wooden sound barriers and they put up all the concrete. Aren't you spending money you don't have?
That is the largest that is the largest infrastructure project in the United States. The cost for the state of Illinois was very minimal. That came about $3.2 billion out of the $3.6 billion came from the federal government. So from our standards, and also the way they funded those bonds is that is going to be a tollway. So the payback on those bonds is through the tolls. So they took out a bond, and they're going to be paying it back as people utilize the road.
Is that true for all the new bike paths and all this stuff that we're getting? I hear that we get grants from the state, new bike path here and new bike path there. Where does this money come from?
Many times when they do that, you have capital project bills. You had a capital bill that passed about 6 years ago that was funded by revenues from video poker and from the video gaming that is in all the different bars and everywhere else. And I can see I'm doing a great job as people are walking out. So I'm obviously keeping everybody enthralled. And those bonds were paid off of due to the revenues from the gaming. So anytime we do a capital bill, and then it takes a good 6 to 8 years to actually go out, find the projects, and spend that capital bill. If it's a $1 billion capital bill that's going to be paid for by revenue of gaming, that is a direct fund. Gaming is going to pay that billion. Gaming's not going to pay anything else. So when they do these things, that is how that they fund those types of projects. Yes.
I'm Jean Kazmarek. I'm a 26-year property taxpayer and resident of DuPage County. I am also a candidate for DuPage County Clerk. I would have prepared formal comments had I been invited and told about this event in advance. I'll just do the best I can here. I've been a DuPage government watchdog for 10 years for no pay. I have been promoting transparency, accountability, and ethics all these years. I target overspending. I became a candidate because I was sick and tired of making public officials do the right thing, begging them, and them just sitting there. I have a few questions for Mr. Hines, my opponent. Where is the current county clerk tonight? Why are you here in his place?
You can applaud. That's like, there you go. Actually, I'm the one that actually does the tax rates. I mean, primarily, he's the administrator, he's the county clerk. Who's actually physically doing these numbers every day? That would be myself. So I feel it's more important for me, and the senator invited me, that we're the ones that meet with all the districts. I mean, I met with the mayor. I deal with the other counties. I deal with Kane County, Cook County. So who's better else than the person that actually physically does the work to speak on it?
And so when I win, I could send you out to these town halls?
I hope you hire me. Yeah? Really, that's a public forum. I didn't know we were into a candidates forum here. I was here for the citizens of the DuPage County, but...
The DuPage County clerk is paid by far the most of any county clerk in the entire state. 43% more than the average salary of any clerk in the 10 most populated counties in Illinois. With salary and stipends, that comes to about $160,000. You could calculate the pension on that. Yet the DuPage County clerk has the least amount of responsibility. If you ask any county clerk in the entire state what their number one responsibility is, he or she would say administering the electoral process. You have nothing to do with that in DuPage County. So if there is no willingness to return the electoral process back to the clerk's office, and the clerk is only doing half the job, don't you think the clerk should receive half the salary? Half the job, half the salary. That's what I've been saying for months. And when I proposed this to the DuPage County Board last May, they paid no attention to me, of course. As Senator Culleton reminded all of us, if you're not getting the answers you want, there is an election coming up. Get out there and vote.
Wow. What's your last name? Wow. Mayor, Senator, gentlemen, my name is Chris Donaldson. I've been living in Bartlett for about 9 years. U46, I don't know if you know this or not, but you guys really are not an asset to Bartlett. I don't know if that's what explained it all to you. No, I'm just saying, all right, so you're trying to sell your house. Oh, what school district is? You gotta get U46. All right, but how is it that U46 keeps getting bigger and bigger, and everybody says, "Oh, okay, we'll just pay it," because that's what you're all doing, is you're just paying them. Why do you keep getting bigger and bigger? Why does the Illinois government keep getting bigger and bigger? Unemployment keeps going up. People getting, government subsidies. That number keeps going up. So the people that are working shrinks. We pay more, you guys get bigger. We shrink, we pay more, you get bigger. Why is that, and why is that allowed to happen? And why are we still dealing with U46? If it's not an asset, it needs to go. If you hire a company to do something for you and they don't do it, you fire them. Okay? Well, I'm going to tell you why they don't get fired is because 25 to 30% of you show up to vote. Okay? That's why they're still there. All right? I was in Iraq in 2004 and 2005. 97, please, because we see how well that went. But, all right, so 98% of those people showed up to vote, okay? A lot of them got shot, a lot of them got blown up, a lot of them got beheaded, but they showed up to vote. We could only get 25% to show up here. You know, if that's it. But those are the people that that we, oh yeah, take our money, but they're not giving us anything in return. They're not giving us a value that we can look at and say, yeah, I'm glad I pay for that. I don't think I've heard anybody here that says, well, I'm really glad we pay for U46, because man, that's just not happening. Why? Well, he's glad because he's got the job, but.
No, I'm actually glad because I have kids in the district.
Okay. Well,
I do see a value. I don't see it the same way you see it. And I think there's other parents that also see it the same way I see it. But I want to just, you keep turning and I can't hear everything you're saying because I don't have the best of hearing. So when you turn, I can't hear what you're saying. So in regards to the size, we haven't increased the number of FTEs since 2008, 2010. We're not. I don't know what, when you say growing, I don't know what you mean by growing.
Well,
our budget increases because we have increases that every other employer has. Health insurance, medical increases, cost of living increases. We have a fleet of 378 buses that every morning come out and pick up kids, and our fuel prices go up the same as they do for the regular household consumer. So when you look at the price of inflation, the price of things going up, municipalities, school districts, nobody is immune to those costs going up. So when you say we're growing, yes, but we're not growing beyond the rate of inflation. We have not been growing beyond the rate of inflation.
Okay. So, but the question is, would you, you're the new guy, would you agree to a little bit more transparency? Would you show us your books?
The books are on the website. They're all on the website.
Everything line item is
every line item is out there. Absolutely.
And then here's another suggestion. Would you agree to someone coming in and checking your books with what actually goes out and what comes in?
Absolutely. We have an auditor that's in there right now. We put on our website, thanks to state law and the transparency of everybody, you can look up my salary, Mr. Burnage's salary.
I'm not
everything
talking
is
about
out
salaries.
there. It's all out there.
I think U46 has gotten so big, you don't know how much money you have, and you don't know where it's going.
We do. Yes, we do.
You know, if there was an extra $4 million, now, granted, you said you were supposed to get it, you know, say I get $50,000. I know I'm going to get $50,000 through the year sometimes, but you know what? The IRS gave you an extra $7,000. But you know what? I'm not going to give it back because I was going to get it anyways. I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at with that too.
As these gentlemen explained, Kane County's error resulted in DuPage County residents paying, you said, $4.8 million more than what you should have paid. But it means that Kane County residents paid $4.8 million less than they should have. So from the district's perspective, what we asked for is what we received.
Okay.
And it just came the way it was pieced out.
You're asking for, you know, I think the public is asking for some accountability from you. And not just you in particular, but school districts, local governments, state governments. We're looking for accountability, and we're not getting it. You hold us accountable if we don't pay. Well, why aren't people holding you accountable if you don't produce for what we pay for? And I think that's what's happening. They say, you know, Bartlett is supposedly the fourth safest city in the U.S.
Third, right?
Well, great. Okay, so say Bartlett's a beautiful town, and it's supposed to be the fourth largest, or the fourth safest place in the U.S. to raise your kids, whatever. I see a lot of cops here, and there's no donuts. So, would you be here if they weren't here facing us?
Would I be where? Here?
I didn't invite the police.
I'm just curious.
I'd still be here.
I've had probably 6-8 town halls.
Okay.
I think Hanover had police there, but that's because it was at Hanover's police department.
So
there were cops at that one.
Right.
But there were no cops at Itasca when I had all of Wooddale come and talk to me about O'Hare Airport.
My other question would be, if we were rated as the fourth safest place in the U.S., were they counting state government and school districts ripping us off? I don't think so.
I didn't catch that last part. I didn't catch it either.
My question was, okay, if Bartlett is rated as the fourth best, safest place to be in the United States, are they including or discluding the fact that our government and our school district is actually ripping us off?
No.
I don't think so. So.
Hi, my name is Janet Knupp, and I've lived in unincorporated Bartlett for 28 years. And I spent the day pulling facts off of the Daily Herald, the Illinois School Report Card, my tax bill, Zillow. I'd be thrilled to share it with some of you when we're finished. But I'd like to share just a few of these things with the audience. We are in a poor school district, unfortunately, and we bear a lot of the burden of that. And when that situation occurs, the state is supposed to step in and help equalize that. So let me tell you what the state has done to U46. State payments to U46 are down $36 million in the last 4 years. U46, 65% of the funding for U46 comes from property taxes. The state average is 61%. So we pay 6.5% more than the state average, even though we're one of the poorest school districts in the state. Why is that? The average spending, this is from the Illinois School District Report Card. This is not from U46, so it's not tainted numbers. The U46 average spending per student is $9,661. The state average per student of similar school districts is $11,483. Did anybody happen to see this article in the paper? Quiet talks on school funding. What it says is they're looking to overhaul Illinois' dated school funding formula, which approved would direct more state money to poorer school districts. At the end of this article, it says, the biggest dollar gainer in the northwest and west suburbs would be Elgin Area School District U46 at more than $24 million per year. That's nearly 31% more than we've been getting. The problem here is the state of Illinois. And so my question for all of you is, I'm sure you're working behind the scenes, and should it not be behind the scenes? Should it be out in the public? And what can we as the taxpayers do to help?
I don't know, Senator Collins, I don't know if you want to respond to that, but I would like to just quickly add that we do support the Senate Bill 16. I know it's still a work in progress. School funding has
out of whack.
The school formula, the state school formula has not changed in reality since the 1980s. And since then, there's been a lot of things tacked on and tacked on and tacked on, and they've never really reevaluated. I know there would be a cost on the state's part to hold harmless the districts that would lose money, but it is legislation that we do support because if you do look at school funding at the statewide level, it is very inequitable.
And what do we as taxpayers need to do to move that forward?
With Senate Bill 16, you will possibly see that come to a vote. It came through a vote through the Senate. It may be up for a vote before veto session or after the election. It may not. While U46 gets $24 million as being one of the poorer school districts, DuPage County schools lose close to $60+ million in that formula. So that means all of your neighbors and everybody else in DuPage County have to make up $60 million that would now be gone from them to pay for U46. So you're going to find that's going to be a heck of a fight down in Springfield coming forward. But the formula does need to be changed. Senator Menard passed that bill last year. He spent a year going around the state. What it really found was that while U46 takes in a lot of money from this, as a single source, a lot of downstate school districts get increased as well. And then what a lot of us feel in the sort of back and forth is if downstate is going to be getting our money for the schools, why would DuPage County not be getting more money for the roads? Because as it stands now, Southern Illinois gets far more dollars for their roads. If you go down to Southern Illinois, it's all state roads. But yet your taxes go to pay a lot of these roads around here. I would, to be vigilant, and if you want to get this bill passed for U46, you will need to call state representatives, because that's who's going to be voting on it next. And you also need to look at some of the rest of DuPage County. I would talk to the DuPage County representatives first, as they're who is closest to you, and then I would sort of branch out from there. You will have probably most of the downstate legislators for it, but you may find most suburban legislators, unless they're in U46, are going to be opposed heavily to that bill.
Right, because they're the ones that would lose the money.
Because they're going to be losing significant. DuPage County, you have about 6, maybe 7 representatives, and truthfully, out of all of them, I think all of them will lose significant dollars for their districts, because the piece of U46 here, if you took $24 million for the whole district, we obviously know that $24 million isn't all going to go to Bartlett. We know that's not. So the piece that's represented here by a representative will go, okay, say that's $6 million that goes there. How much did District 88 lose? How much did Marquardt School District lose? How much did all that lose? And if in the overall ratio of the district, it turns out they're losing $8 million and only gaining $6 million here, it's good for one part of the district, but then it nails the whole rest of the part of their district. So DuPage, okay, so maybe I'll take that back. Maybe the DuPage people aren't who you need to talk to. I would talk to the people who are surrounding U46, who have vested interest. You have Anna Moeller, who takes up most of Elgin. You have
Fred Crespo.
You would have Mike Tryon.
He might have one school.
Okay, but so those would be the people you would look for, and then as you research the other school districts that are winners in that, you would go and make sure that they're supportive of it as well. But I would say the DuPage representatives, most of them are going to be opposed to it because it's going to cause significant losses in their districts as it stands now.
I do want to echo your comments, though. If you do move towards a weighted per pupil formula based on individual student needs, whether that's their low income status, special education, giftedness, and you truly do move towards what the students need in a school district, if that's what gets us $23 million, or if we lose money, if it's equitable and it's based on a per pupil basis, I don't know why you would be against it.
Absolutely. So, again, everybody needs to vote, and everybody needs to get involved instead of just standing up here and bitching at them.
Can I say something to that? People also have to run, because if they don't run, who are we going to vote for?
Hello. I'm a parent of U46, and my kids do go to the Wayne Bartlett schools, the ones that you said are doing very well. What we have seen, and maybe you will not agree, but as a parent, we think of it as a reverse discrimination. I am an immigrant. I have taught my children my language, but when they went to school, they had to learn English. They forgot our national language, and that was okay because we're here, we're going to learn English, we're going to move on. I got involved in the PTO. I did not grow up here. I was not paid. I got involved in the PTO because I wanted to know how the school systems work here. That makes me a good parent. I wasn't paid to do that. So my question was, these entitlement programs that we have, who pays for these programs? Are they coming from our tax dollars? And if they're coming from our tax dollars, I know that we all have to pay registration fees. We all have to pay for driver's ed when our children come to that age. We pay for school supplies, and I do know that there are lots of schools that do not have, there are individuals who do not have to pay registration fees based on income. My question is, when all of this is accounted for, it's coming from our tax dollars. We're struggling to make payments to these taxes. Then we have to pay for, on top of it, we're paying for our kids' registration fees. Then we're paying for, obviously you still need money, so we're going to pay for somebody else's registration fees because they're too poor to pay for it. Then we are also saying that when the PTO raises money, we don't get an interventionist at our school because we don't qualify, we don't have the need for it. When the PTO raises funds for that, we were told last year that it is not fair and equitable and that we cannot hire our own we cannot hire our own interventionist, even though we would be paying to the district and the district would be the one hiring that person. But it was not fair and equitable because other schools PTOs would not be able to raise that money, or it was explained to us in some way. My question is that we're feeling that our class sizes are getting larger, the dual language class sizes are much smaller for reasons, I understand the teachers have to do, but it's reverse discrimination from our standpoint. We pay most of the fees, we pay most of the tax dollars, our class sizes are larger, and then with this redistricting that you're talking about, Wayne and Bartlett schools are on the list of the 10 schools, I believe, that are scheduled that may be closing.
No.
What is it? There was can I
address some of these one by one?
Yes, sure.
So the dual language program, Illinois school districts, most of the things that you're talking about are required by either federal or state law. Okay. So the dual language program is not a federal or state requirement, but bilingual education for students who do not speak English is a requirement. And the requirement of the law is that in the state of Illinois, this is a rule from not the General Assembly, but the Illinois State Board of Education, our class sizes in ELL, English Language Learner classrooms, must be 90% the size of general education classrooms. That's a state law. It's one that we actually tried to fight a few years back, and we were not successful. You talked about registration fees. If you're not paying registration fees, if you're low income, that's absolutely true. That's also a state and federal requirement. If a family qualifies to be free, if they qualify for free and reduced lunch, by law, we cannot charge them registration fees, graduation fees, and other fees.
But then who makes up for because you still need that money. U46 to function still needs that money. Does that come from the taxpayers portion of it, is what my question is, or does it come from a federal fund because it's the state mandated regulation?
Well, we do receive federal Title I funds, but it's not really coming out of the Title I funds would never make up for the other fees. So, I don't know. I don't know that I have an answer. It would be all funds, basically.
Okay, so we're paying for that.
So part of it could be taxpayers, some could be from other sources. You talked about the interventionists and the PTO issue.
Yes.
That's a federal law. Schools that receive Title I funds, I know I hear snickering and laughing at me. I'm not making these up.
Yeah.
This is state and federal laws. So we would put at risk all of our Title I funds, which is about $9 million a year. Because our school district uses Title I funds to supply interventionists at schools that are low income, if a school in Bartlett that is not a Title I school gets an interventionist paid for by either us or by you as a PTO, the federal government calls that supplanting, and they can actually pull all of our funds. So when we found out that was occurring, that's why we told PTOs you cannot fund interventionists because we've already put them in these Title I schools. So that's something we're going to have to address moving forward. I don't know how we do that.
Would that be something that you would address within the government, or was that something that we as taxpayers need to address with our representatives?
It depends on the level of government. So the Title I funding is not Senator Cullerton. That would be your congressman or congresswoman or senator. That's the people in Washington make those regulations, not at the state level. Some of them are state level decisions. The ELL, English Language Learner classrooms being at 90%, whereas general education classrooms have to I mean, if they have to be 90% the size, that is a problem. It is more expensive to run a classroom when it has to be 90% the size of a general ed classroom. And that is a state regulation.
Okay. So as far as this reverse discrimination that I'm talking about, where we're paying all of these funds, we are not a Title I. Obviously, our area is not a Title I, but we're not getting the funds because as a district, because we're so large, we have to kind of play nice with everybody and all the other schools. Our schools are not getting a lot of the things that other schools that are in the poverty district, in the poverty areas.
You'd actually be surprised. If you look at the actual expenses per building, the most expensive building, at least as of last year, that we have in the elementary schools, the most expensive one is Prairie View Elementary in Bartlett.
In terms of per student or?
In terms of total cost and the per pupil allocation. It is actually more expensive than Garfield and Huff and other schools in Elgin. And they're the ones that get all that extra funding. So we do have inequitable funding across our schools. The other point that you raised was the 10 schools closing in Bartlett. There was never...
No, there's a list that came out that said these are from the CAC that was put out.
The ones that are under-enrolled.
Under-enrollment,
right.
for the enrollment.
I heard you say that you're going to close 10 schools. I'm like, no, we're going to close 11.
For the redistricting. So if Wayne is one of those schools, Bartlett Elementary, and I think there was a couple others in the Bartlett area, if those Spring Trail's
at Carroll Street.
Right. So those are all the ones that are the higher end better achieving schools. If they're the ones that are under enrollment, and you redistrict, how is that? What's the master plan here? Are we saying that we're going to bust them? Are we saying that we're going to consolidate? Are we saying we're closing some buildings? What's the master plan?
We're not. I wouldn't say any of the above at this point. Until this group and a demographer actually have a chance to review where our students are currently residing and try to come up with a plan that would work for 4 to 5 to 6 years, I don't know for sure. I really don't.
Then there was the article actually stated that there was supposed to be a vote on this by the end of next year to be implemented for 2016 school year.
The work is working, right. We're going through the process this year, through the summer, and then into next spring so that we can come back in 2016 and 17 with new attendance boundaries.
Okay.
And the purpose is to be more cost efficient with our operations. It will improve cost efficiency in our operations.
I am really looking forward, and I congratulate you, but I'm really looking forward to holding you accountable for everything. I do have great trust in you, and I have great expectations of you as well.
Well, I appreciate your trust, and I will earn it. Continue to earn it.
Good evening. My name is Dominic Furio, and I've been a resident of Bartlett for about 36 years. My question is for Mike. He knows me. We've talked before. I built a house in '88, put an addition on in 1990, put another addition in the year 2000. All the square footage was proper. 12 years later, I happened to stop in to ask why my property tax has gone so high. And I happened to look at the computer, and I happened to see that my square footage had changed. 10 years later, it was the same square footage. 8 years before, it was the same square footage. Overnight, it added another 400 square feet to my house. Why would you add 400 square feet to my house 12 years later without my notice? I brought it to his attention on it. No satisfaction. I have big windows, cubic feet. And, I'm paying $28,000, $18,000 goes to U46. We're moving in February or March, we're getting out of town. I probably overbuilt in Bartlett. I had other reasons for staying in Bartlett. I do not have any reasons to stay in Bartlett anymore. My question is, I'm the first owner of that home. Not too many homes qualify for the size of my home. How do you get a value to it? Homes down the street, across the street, they vary, all different sizes. And I'd just like to know why it is that my house was picked after 12, 13, 14 years after the building permit and after it was built. Somewhere out of nowhere decided to look at my property. They never been in my house. I've had appraisals come in, and they were all within 50 square feet. Different banks, different everything. They never have been in my house, and overnight, they decide to add 400 square feet. Yeah, you know, all at one time you get a $4,000 or $5,000 increase in a year, and I've gone there 3 times. Why should I go get a lawyer and fight? If they found a problem 12 years later, I do not know why they would pick my house for 12 years later and not bring it to my attention to say, Dom, we found a problem. Why would you be picking my house 12, 14 years later? And as high as the taxes have gone, now you compound it even more by adding square footage that does not exist, because appraisers get paid $1,000 a piece to appraise a house for a bank, and people that work for the county don't get nothing out of me, and they took it upon themselves, without even bringing it to my attention, to come up with these figures. Okay. I'd just like to get an answer to them.
Okay, well, we have a file on every property, and over the years we review every file on every property and to look for discrepancies.
Why wouldn't you bring it to my attention?
If we made a change, then you would get a notice telling you that there was an assessment change. That at that time you're free to call our office and discuss, come in, and if you have evidence to show that our square footage is incorrect, we'll look at it. We'll remeasure the property. We'll look at your blueprints. You had the opportunity and you appealed your assessment, and we have you. I mean, I'd be happy to look at the appraisals you have and compare our drawing to your drawing.
I brought your appraisals there from 3 different banks, and they were all within 50 square feet of each other. And like I said, the time that you and I sat together there, and I happened to glance at the computer there, and I seen there was an extra 400 square feet added to it, and you and I could not come to an agreement. And I mean, why? You know, are you going to try and tell me that somewhere down the line that somebody didn't have nothing to do with their free time and happened to pick my house and says, and you were never ever in it, to say, you know what? We're going to get another 400 square feet to it.
It's a process that is ongoing. We're reviewing our files for accuracy. So, again, this is not the forum to talk about your specific house because I don't have the file.
It's my property tax on there, and you know what? I'm tired of fighting it, getting 3 minutes, and the guy doesn't give me any satisfaction, and you want me to get a lawyer, because for me to go and try and save that money, I'm not going to do it anymore. Okay, you are the one that should have taken upon yourself. If you found a problem, that you should have brought it to my attention. No.
Well, if the assessment changed due to the square footage, then you would have gotten a notice.
Well, the notice I had gotten, the notice I had gotten was from $20,000 to $25,000 right around that time. Now it's up to $28,000, and it compounds on square footage that I don't own, and now I'm even paying taxes on something there that's not even mine. And you're telling me,
bring your blueprint.
And I just wanted to know why isn't it that you didn't have the courtesy to bring it to my attention of the fault that your assessor or someone that does the blueprints, Bartlett, had the same square footage as the other banks did. And out of nowhere, you guys want the money that bad, and you're going to go underhanded on there, and that's exactly what you guys have done. Now I'm at that point to where I'm asking, there aren't too many comps in my neighborhood. There's a house that's being built today with the same square footage. Does that have the same value as a house that's been built in '88 and have two or three different additions put on? And I should not be taxed on the kind of tax basis that you have put me in.
Okay. Well, no. A 20-year-old, 8,000 square foot house in a neighborhood like yours that is an unusual neighborhood, we have your house valued lower than other homes of that size across the township. So we recognize.
Well, I'm not worried about that part. I'm worried about something that doesn't exist.
Well, bring in your blueprints. I'll personally look
I
through
went
your
to Bartlett
blueprints.
over there to even try and find their prints on there, baby. Everything's on,
Then I'll bring a
on
tape measure
microprint.
out.
And I figured that you would have your information because somebody had to do it in your office in order for them to get the square footage that they missed at that time. You already have the information because you didn't get it from me, you didn't get it from the village, so evidently you took it upon yourself, or somebody, took it upon themselves to figure it out. How did they figure it out if they didn't have a blueprint or anything of that nature? Now you want me to bring my blueprint, which is the same blueprint that I gave to Bartlett, that Bartlett gave to you, and I just want to, I don't want to go back and forth because I don't ever want to go back to the Wayne Township and argue against myself.
Okay, well, come into my office. I'll bring a tape measure, bring a deputy. We'll come out, remeasure your house, and see what square footage we end up with.
I guess my question
That's
is...
the solution. I mean,
I guess my question is, how...
This isn't the forum.
No, it isn't. Oh, okay. My square footage on the taxes is what I was trying to say. Why is my taxes...
We understand.
Okay, sorry about that.
It's okay.
Thank you, Don.
Good luck.
Good evening. My name is Pat Kelly, and I've been a resident of Bartlett since 1978. I appreciate you gentlemen being here today representing the various taxing bodies. It's unfortunate some of the other taxing bodies weren't here. I really appreciate Kevin Wallace's attempt at bringing this together. If it wasn't for Kevin and the village, I don't think a lot of us would have had the opportunity to know of the mistake and be able to have some input here. I certainly feel that the percentage of my tax dollars going to the village, which is less than 9% of the tax bill, is used very wisely. And I know you don't get a pension, Mayor Wallace, and you just barely get a stipend. It doesn't cover your time. That being said, I can't say the same thing for some of the other taxing bodies here, and I hope Senator Cullerton, along with Mr. Cronin, take a look at some of these taxing bodies that we are being charged on our bill. I agree with everyone else here. I don't think we're getting a value on some of these taxing bodies that we should, but that's just one issue. The other issue is the mistake on the 2013 bill, and Mr. Hines, my question then is to the county. Our tax bills are due in June and September. Mr. Munson, when he was speaking, seemed to recognize there was an error back in May. That was before the bills went out. It could have been after the mailing date, and first installment due is June, but certainly the second installment wasn't due yet. Why was it not corrected at that time? So our corrected second installment could have been sent out to us as well as King County residents, because they're going to be going crazy next year when it's corrected. Seems to me it would have been easy enough at that point to fix it and not have to deal with all this.
Right. Well, there's actually only one tax bill created.
I know, with two installments, but it could have been, yeah, but you made a mistake.
But there is only one tax bill generated. So when we calculate the tax rate, which is the total dollars that DuPage is going to pay, which is divided in two halves that you don't have to pay them all at once, Kane County also does the same thing.
Right.
So without Kane County, all three counties would then have to send out a new one, and there's a new bill. a revised bill, but there's
What
nothing.
3 counties? Cook wouldn't. Cook's
Cook
separate.
was probably
Cook is
all right
always,
because
right.
they're far behind us.
So
but-
DuPage and Kane,
Right.
even if we would have gotten as taxpayers our tax bill that had 2 equal installments, if you send a follow-up saying, we made a mistake, here's your corrected second installment, I'll bet everyone here would have been okay with the extra postage cost, and you would have charged us less, and Kane County could have done the same thing. Who has the authority to stop that tax bill going out, or who okayed that bill going out knowing it was incorrect?
Well, when the bill went out, the county collector is the one who sends out the tax bill. So the way with it, we calculate, the county clerk calculates the tax rate, calculates the rate for everybody's taxes. It then gets what we call charge the collector. We send it down to the collector to go collect the money. Unfortunately, the state law doesn't allow me to revise the second installment, and that's what Senator Cullerton and I are going to be working on, in that there's nothing in the law today, or currently, that allowed us to correct that problem.
Doesn't DuPage County have certificates of error, as does Cook County? So, for instance, if a homeowner fails to file their homeowner exemption, there's a certificate of error that gets filed, and that person will get the money refunded. Why is that not the same process?
That is correct, but a certificate of error is for that county, that specific county. Because we're dealing with 3 different counties in this case.
No, our bill is with you, with DuPage, that collected from the DuPage people incorrectly.
But the district, but we're dealing with 3 counties as a whole, so I can't just, DuPage can't correct the problem, say, without Kane also then correcting the problem, and then Cook would not be a problem.
Well,
but I can't direct Kane County to do anything.
No, but Kane could not have been made aware at the same time. We have a mistake here. Okay, U46 is supposed to get whatever total they're supposed to.
Right.
And to say, hey, Kane, you need more. You didn't get your proportionate share. So here's a corrected DuPage, so everybody gets the reduced amount. Kane, here's your higher amount. Sorry, we screwed up. Here's the corrected amount.
Yeah, I can tell you, Ms. Kelly, exactly what you're describing is what I really, really pushed. And
I'm not getting an answer that I feel is...
Yeah, I didn't get very good answers either, but...
Well, unfortunately, there's nothing in the state statute that allows us to do that.
But what prohibits it?
And there's nothing, well, the Department of Revenue oversees all this from the very beginning. I mean, this is where it all stemmed from.
So the Department of Revenue could have said, Kane, you have to wait. You have to send out a corrected
Right.
second,
So
too.
that-
So Kane and DuPage could have both corrected it right from the get-go and chose not to.
Well, the Department of Revenue didn't have that authority, and Senator, I believe that's what we're going to work on in order to correct this problem in the future. There's nothing in the statute that allows us to do this. I mean,
Well, how many times does it happen? Hopefully not often.
this is the only time I've known of it, so
Well.
I'm hoping never again.
What in the statute authorizes certificates of correction, then, that you're allowed to do when there's a certificate of error? Is there an actual statutory site for that?
There is, and I don't know that off the top of my head what statute that is, but there is a CFE or a certificate of error.
Because I'm assuming our assessor, when he says, hey, something's smelling funny here, and passes it on, and the county's gone, now we're going to send it out anyway?
Well, no, it was already done. It was already out. Before we even were notified of anything, the bill was already...
Well, it could have been mailed, but you could have certainly sent corrected bills, right?
Nothing in statute allows me to send out a corrected
Does
bill.
anything prohibit you from sending it?
Yeah, the law doesn't say I can.
The law, what, does not say you cannot? I didn't hear what you said, I'm sorry.
The law doesn't say that I can.
But it doesn't say you cannot either.
The law says that there's anything that's incorrect, the adjustment will be made in the next year as a prior year adjustment. That law that I read to you is pretty clear. It says that if there's something wrong with the bill this year, the correction will be made by the county clerk in the following year.
Well, how are certificates of correction then allowed? That's not accurate then.
Those are for different things than a rate and then a burden. So, I mean, we're comparing apples and oranges here. But we're working on that. I mean, I would love that nothing else to give everybody a check back. Believe me.
Well, I think it was possible to do right in the beginning, as Mayor Wallace indicated. If that was something that was raised, you could have sent out a corrected bill certainly before the September bill, and you chose not to.
Well, there was nothing on there.
Am I still on? All right. What we're working on, and according to the Department of Revenue, is that there isn't a function, is that the tax bill comes out once, and that's what they're required to do when they do the shift of burden. And we also knew, and Mayor Wallace and I just sort of commented on this very quickly, we knew there would be a shift of burden anyway because of the large amounts of foreclosures in Hanover, large amounts in Elgin, so there was going to be somewhat of a shift of burden. So I don't think until anybody actually anticipated it. But that would be a function of the Department of Revenue, and the Department of Revenue doesn't have the function where they can adjust midstream.
But Department of Revenue also governs Cook County, does it not? Cook County sends out 2 separate tax bills. So there must be some mechanism for it.
Cook County is also home rule. DuPage County is not.
Does that mean no? I mean, I don't know the answer to that. Does that mean that?
What also is Cook County's on a different schedule because they also estimate their tax bills, whereas we put in real-time assessments.
Well, sometimes.
And they'll do sometimes. And they're also taxed at I believe 10% on their assessed value, where every other county in the state has to go on 1/3 or at 30% of their assessed value. So Cook County deals. And when you're down in Springfield, it was a very rude awakening. Cook County and the city of Chicago deal on a totally separate, different set of rules than almost every other place in the state.
Oh, and I'm not advocating that we switch to Cook, because I agree it's a problem the way their taxes are calculated.
Right.
But I just think everybody keeps pointing that it's not me, it's not me. I'd like to know who the person that would have had the authority to say, let's send a corrected bill because we're going to save a whole lot of aggravation, a whole lot of dollars for our taxpayers, and thousands of people on both counties would not be going through what we're going through now. It's just simply not fair.
I could say who's going to be able to once I pass the bill, if that helps. I think today, though, I can't point to anybody who could have gotten it done.
That's
and I'd love to say
pitiful.
I could have gotten it done.
That's very sad.
I can't tell you that going forward, once the bill is passed and signed into law, I can point directly to the person who will have the authority to make the changes, who will have the authority to get that accomplished.
I guess I'm disappointed in our DuPage County leaders then as well for not being able to take a firmer stand with this. I haven't seen anything on DuPage County websites explaining this error. Did I miss it? Is it on there someplace?
It's on Michael's website. Because it's
township.
specific.
I'm talking about the
because
county.
it's a specific just for one, 2 districts, is U46 and 509. It was an issue for just a very small portion of all of DuPage County. But I mean, believe me, I've talked to everybody and anybody who wants to.
Oh no, I give you credit for being here and taking the
and
hit.
believe me, I would
Don't
love
get
to
me
fix
wrong.
it. I mean, if nothing else, I mean, believe me, it's easier for me to say let's send out a revised bill, but we were not. I didn't have the authority to do that. And so I can't do something I don't have the authority to do. The clerk,
What number of people do you think this affects in the whole DuPage? Seems to me it might be a pretty big district. No, it's not that. The numbers aren't that large.
of U46 and 509.
the ones that are affected by this area.
No, out of all the parcels, there's 334,000 parcels in DuPage. You're probably talking 20,000 parcels.
Okay.
So, I mean, believe me, but for you, it's a big issue, and it is, and it is for us too. Because when I stop believing when the Department of Revenue gives me a number, that was always in stone.
I know,
mean,
but if it's
we believe
that
that
small
this
of a
was the
number,
correct number.
this should have been easier to fix, I would think, then,
Well,
too.
and I think because this issue never came up, it was never, until you actually cross this, there was nobody ever thought about, well, how do we correct if we give a wrong number? And I have to say, the Department of Revenue over the past years have always given us rock solid numbers. When we went on, we extended it. We made our corrections every year, our prior year adjustments, and there was never a problem. Well, and that's why nothing was ever in the law, because it hadn't happened before.
And just to clarify, we think they gave us rock solid numbers. We're having them do a 10-year look back. So we've already expressed that while we haven't seen it happen before, it may have, and it doesn't mean it hasn't. So we're having them do a look back as well. Now, I don't know if there's any way to recover or how we can do going forward. We're going to advocate for penalties and accountability. That'll be going forward. Like I said, I wish I could have gone in and done it.
Well, again, thank you for at least taking all the heat here today. I appreciate it. Like I said, some other taxing bodies, have been nice to see them here as well. But thank you anyway. Thank you.
Thank you.
When will we get the results for those 10 years?
That I do not know. As it was initially, it's just been a phone conversation where they said to me, yes, no problem, we can do that. A formal letter actually requesting them to do it is going out of my office Friday. with a copy going to Kevin. I imagine I'll receive correspondence back within a week to 10 days that'll say how long it'll take, or if they need me to get more people to sign on to the authority. Truthfully, I don't know if I have the authority just to call up a department head and say, hey, do this. I probably have to go through somebody at some point. I think I'm pretty smart and important. I'm really not that important.
Our dollars are important.
I agree.
I just want to let you remaining folks know it is 10 o'clock, so we'll try to wind this down with these last two. So
what I have to say is pretty quick. My name is Vicki. I have sat here long enough tonight. I wasn't going to say anything. But listening to you guys, not taking ownership in the mistakes that have been made and my increases in U46 it's pathetic. You knew you made a mistake. I am a struggling homeowner. My husband was on unemployment for several years. I had to go through HARP, I had to go through HEMP to get a modification in my home so I could afford to stay in this home that I love. I love my home. Because my tax dollars have now gone up, my tax bill has gone up, I cannot afford to make that payment. I can't afford it. That means I may lose this house that I fought for. I fought, cried, I was on the phone. I couldn't go to work because I had to stay on the phone to talk to the government to get my taxes and my home modified. You knowingly let the bill go out, our bills. How do you sleep at night knowing that you've evicted people like me in this community? And do you know who's going to get my home? Somebody much worse off than me, because it's going to go into foreclosure. You are not going to get the tax dollars from that next person either. Our town is going to start to crumble. Our streets are going to start to fall apart. Our community is going to fall apart because we are not going to be the safe community anymore. Bartlett is going to fall to the wayside. West Chicago is going to fall to the wayside because we're going to be bringing in people that cannot afford the homes that we once could afford. How do you sleep knowing that you're evicting us? U46, it's pathetic. Our tax bill has got to stop. This has got to stop. That's all I have to say.
Good evening. I'll try to make my statements very quick as well. I don't expect any answers. These are just my thoughts. Although they may be posed as questions, maybe the audience can take them into consideration as well. I've lived in unincorporated West Chicago for 7 years. My daughter attended Wayne Elementary. Luckily, she is very smart. She was accepted into the gifted program in 4th grade. Unfortunately, it has caused her extreme social disruption. She is not continuing on in the program. She is now in 7th grade. She's attending her regular homeschool. It's a daily struggle. It's a daily struggle. She is in the accelerated math class, the highest that she can get in 7th grade, and she is doing things that she did in 4th grade. And this is what my tax dollars are paying for. It's outrageous. If I could afford to move, I would. If I could afford to send her to a private school, I would. But I can't. So I am stuck in this catch-22 that many of us are. Some additional concerns with U46. Academic success for all, right? Why was I not afforded, why is my child not afforded the opportunity for her parent to go learn to be a leader? There's not even a program available, paid or not, for me to attend to be able to be a better parent, a better leader. That's not right. It's not academic success for all. The grading system has changed. I don't know the exact terms. The first open house at school this year, some of the teachers didn't even know what the new grading system was. That's an outrage to me. Our children are in school. School is in session. Teachers are producing grades that they don't understand.
That's not right. If a child's not allowed to fail in the new grading system, is that really preparing them for life in the real world? Is it? I don't think so. Earlier it was stated that 700 teachers were fired to help decrease the budget. If the enrollment numbers have stalemated or actually decreased, why does the budget continue to increase? I don't get it. My last concern was brought up at the town hall meeting about the handbook, changing words in the handbook to state they removed citizen and replaced citizen with community member, which I didn't think too much of at first. And after some serious consideration of the weight of those words, I started to realize why we may be struggling financially. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for coming out. I know the crowd's dwindled. Hopefully some people got some answers.
Quick.
Okay.
My name is Marty Green. I'm from Wayne. We've been there 27 years. We too are leaving Illinois. We have 5 homes that are rentals. We're going to sell them. We have 2 up for sale. We're getting out of here. One thing, I worked on a tax revolt 2 years ago. This will affect you 46, I believe. So Tony, this may be applicable to you. One thing that I found is I thought I'm going to start looking over all the pays for all the teachers and the superintendents and the principals. Do you know what I found? I found that what they were doing is when somebody was going to retire, like a superintendent or a principal, they would give them an increase in pay so they would get a higher pension. The person that talked about pension, well, that's what happened. They increased his pay at the very last year so he would get a higher pension. Well, last 4 years, yeah, for teachers and teachers. So that is something that okay. Yes.
So that was a part, that was not unique to 26.
I can't hear you.
They cut me off? There we go. So that was, it's one of those things where the General Assembly, and with all due respect, Senator Colton, he was not there at the time, they put in place laws that they think are going to really help the pension system, for example, and it ends up backfiring. So they ended up putting in place penalties for school districts if you exceeded a 6% increase for any employee in teacher retirement at any point in their final years of retirement. Well, the problem with that is teachers sometimes get stipends for football, for volleyball, for other things, and they find themselves exceeding that 6%, and the penalties outweighed the benefits. And so this was back in the 1990s. So what they ended up doing was they would agree within their contracts with their teachers and their administrators that in those final 4 years, we're going to give you a 6% bump every year, year after year. Doesn't matter. You know, you just show up, you get your 6% increase every year, and it was to avoid the state penalties. It was an unintended consequence of a law. We have since taken that out of our teacher's contract, not this one, but the one before, and we also do not have it in our administrator contracts any longer as of last year.
Good.
So it's been corrected.
And what about masters? When they get their masters, do they automatically get an increase in pay?
So the teachers, we have a compensation committee. This latest bargaining session that we resulted in a compensation committee. But yes, most districts, and ours included, teachers are on a salary schedule. They start at about $35,000 here, although other districts are higher. And they move down a lane or move down a step every year that they've been in the district, and they can move across lanes, which is additional education. And they do get additional compensation when they get their master's degree, yes.
Okay.
Under the current compensation
and
formula.
what percent is that? 3, 5?
No, it's not that high. It really just depends on where they are on the salary schedule.
Okay.
So it's 15 years, and then they get the master's. It could be a little bit less if it's bachelor's. The intent is to try to get teachers in at the bachelor's and move them towards a master's degree quickly, because we know that teachers that have their master's degree in the content area will actually be more successful with our kids.
that is what the belief is, yes. I got my master's and nobody at my company, or at the company I worked for, ever gave me an increase in pay. And I too could use, yeah.
Well, these are salary schedules that have been, the salary schedules haven't changed since the 1970s, but at least as part of this last bargain with the teachers union, we've agreed to take a full look at how we compensate teachers. So that is being looked at, and our next bargaining session will focus on salary.
And I'm an adjunct professor, and I'm certified as a high school English teacher, but I do believe that should be looked at.
So it is.
Good. And the other thing I want to just present, and then I'll sit down. I know you're all tired. I do want to thank each and every one of you for being here. But why do you have courses? And I did not know this till tonight. Somebody showed me on their phone that you have courses of jewelry making, photography. I'm a high school English teacher. Do you know what these kids need? They need English, math, reading. They can't even read.
So there are, and I don't know how you want to respond to all these or not. I know it's getting late.
I am talking to you, yes.
There are, across our 5 high schools, there are courses that are offered. It's in the course catalog. It does not mean that those courses run.
Oh.
So that means that as a student has an elective, they have to take, by state law, they have to take English, they have to take math, they have to take social studies, they have to have history, they have to have all those things in order to graduate. On top of that are all the electives, just like you had in college and high school. Students can elect to take jewelry, but it does not, that course doesn't run unless enough kids sign up to take it.
But you still have to have somebody there to teach
So if they're
that.
not in the jewelry class, they're going to be in something else. They'll be at another course.
But am I right that you have to have a teacher ready to go to teach that course if you have enough students signing up?
If we have enough students sign up, then yes, we hire a teacher, but that does not, we do not keep teachers on the rolls. In New York, they had a problem where they would just basically have rooms where they had teachers in reserves ready to go out. We don't have it that way. We schedule the students, we know what they're going to be in, and that's when we hire the teachers. We don't hire the teachers until we know the kids are going to be in there for high school.
Thank you for answering questions. The last meeting I went to, they said no, they did not answer any questions.
I'm glad to answer your
I give
questions.
you guts. Thank you.
I'm glad to answer.
Thank you to all.
Thank you.
One real quick question is kind of addressed to you, Mayor. I live in a Bartlett subdivision over 25 years. Kind of this lady right over here, what she was saying, 2.5 weeks, I've had 6 residents move out, taxes. And I think you're going to see a lot more of it. Tony, addressed to you, what other programs do we have with the $1,000 being paid to these parents? What other programs are out there that we don't know about? What other ticking bombs are there?
I wouldn't classify it as a ticking bomb, but there are a lot of, it depends on how you classify a program.
Well, I think, obviously that was a big sticking point with a lot of people, paying parents to be parents,
But I have to put that in perspective. That's been less than, over the last 3-4 years, it's been in place, and again, that was put in place by the prior superintendent.
Okay.
It's been less than $100,000. Does that, now is that...
Well, I mean...
But in the context of a $480 million budget,
yeah,
cutting
it's
that program is not going to reduce taxes in Bartlett, in Wayne. But I understand your point. I understand your point.
What I'm really getting at is that's $100,000
But we
there.
do, our high
There's
schools...
$100,000 here. That's what I'm getting at. Is
Our high schools offer parent universities. There are many other opportunities, many other programs, mostly school-based, where the school community says we want to do this. And they run that. That's not a district decision. That's based on what local schools want to do. The other thing I'd like to point out, just real quickly, since you're here, we do have a Citizens Advisory Council that you can sign up to be a member for any of the schools in your neighborhood. So if you have an interest in having regular contact with me,
will
board
I get
members,
paid for that?
we're looking at it. We're looking at it. No.
I learned from Tom.
There's no budget for it. We used to give them cookies, but we cut the cookies.
DuPage County, I understand, the statutes, but I mean, what I was really getting at, in 2.5 weeks, I've had 6 residents move out. And I mean, hiding behind these statutes, sometimes don't you think we should use our common sense? And maybe directed a little at you there, Tom. I mean, just 6 residents in a subdivision in 2.5 weeks. Mayor, you want to come? I'll point the houses out to you. That's a lot of houses in 2.5 weeks. And you know, what I'm really saying is, you know, I understand statutes and the whole thing, but what it really comes down to, why don't we use common sense here? You know, this is a struggling economy. This is a tough economy. I think there's a lot of people really just hanging on by the skin of their teeth.
Oh, I totally agree. And maybe you could help me understand what you mean by common sense.
Well, common sense. Why don't we adjust the second installment? Why don't we do something? And I know you can't do anything there about it. Well, what I'm saying is, DuPage County, I don't know, you know, but I'm just saying is, we're struggling here.
Yeah.
But 6 residents in 2.5 weeks.
Paul will attest that I predicted this as soon as when I was in his office. I think it was in May. I said, this is an extremely serious situation.
Well, I understand.
And it's not just it's not going to affect you know, anybody else than the people that are right along this corridor.
I think, you know, DuPage County, I think Mike, you know, I think we've talked. We knew these errors back in what? January, February. I mean, is that correct? I mean, they were early.
What? The rates were released in April. In March, right before the mailing of the bills. So no, it was all in process. And
it was a software error.
Right.
Is I think the way it was characterized.
But the error didn't get discovered until after the bills hit.
But I mean, you know, I understand. Okay, the first installment. You know, U46 school districts, they need their money. I understand that. But I mean, in the economy that we have here today, I mean, you know, that just took them through 6 residents in 2.5 weeks. Wait by the time, you know, another month or 2 hits. You know, and I mean, I've been to these meetings. This is my 3rd one. And I mean, I come out sometimes and, you know, we're hiding behind statutes. You know, sometimes maybe we had to use common sense. I mean, maybe a lot of people in here, I don't know, sometimes I feel you guys don't care. You know, I mean, that's maybe the impression I get. Is it true? I don't know. But, you know, I just think, here, pay it. We're going to fix it next year. Yeah. Some of these people aren't going to be here next year.
I totally agree with you. So I'm not sure how you want me to comment on it.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's anything you can do.
I completely agree with what you're saying.
I just think maybe there's something else, you know, I don't know. I'm not really pointing the finger at you. I'm not saying that. Well, I'm just making you aware, in 2.5 weeks, I got 6 residents. What's it going to look like in another month?
And I think that kind of leads to the senator making sure that there is a mechanism in place when this is found out in the future, if it happens again, that it's fixed. So,
well,
doesn't do us any good right now.
That's right. So I mean, a lot of us don't have the time.
Right.
You know, and at the meeting in Wayne, the guy stood up and says, I sold my house. When do I get my back payment, my credit for my overpayment for 2 years? Yeah. The response was, you're not going to get it. You're out of luck.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I just, what this lady said, I felt for her.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Well, I want to thank Senator Tom Collerton for being here. Thank Deputy Clerk Paul Hines, Wayne Township Assessor Mike Musson, and of course Chief Executive Officer Tony Sanders, and the Director of Financial Operations Dale Burnage. Thank you all for being here. I'm sure they'll stick around for a few minutes if you have any other questions. Thank you for coming.